Chapter 1185. Clean and efficient. Boom, boom, boom. The sounds of intense yuan power collisions were like a great bell that filled the entire stage. On the stage, the 7 cultivators all exploded with their own powerful strength as they shot towards the closest cultivator. Swoosh. Zhuowen had yet to make a move when he felt a sharp gust of wind sweeping over. Turning his head to look, he saw a youth with a dark expression and steady footsteps pouncing towards him with a sinister grin. Zhuowen had some impression of this person. He was the strongest genius in the Great Chu Mansion. Kang Jie had previously introduced him to the names and situations of the other 6 mansion's geniuses. This person was called Chu Tian, the most outstanding genius in the Great Chu Mansion. Boom. Zhuowen punched out. Terrifying force was like ripples in water as it violently collided with Chu Tian's fists. Subsequently, Chu Tian's expression changed slightly as he was actually forced back dozens of steps. On the other hand, Zhuowen also consciously retreated dozens of steps. Although it would not be a problem for him to defeat Chu Tian with a single punch with his current strength, he did not want to stand out too much. After all, the stage was currently a chaotic battle. If he stood out, he would undoubtedly be attacked by everyone. This was not an outcome he wanted. If 6 peak heavenly venerates joined forces to attack him, he would have to use his trump cards to deal with them. This was only the first battle, so there was no need for Zhuowen to reveal too much. You do have some strength. Chu Tian stabilized his body as a sliver of fear faintly appeared in his eyes as he looked at Zhuowen. The situation of Chu Tian and Zhuowen's clash was naturally witnessed by the 3 geniuses from the Great Chu Mansion, Great Tang Mansion and Great Han Mansion. They exchanged glances before shooting towards Zhu Lan and the Great Qin Mansion's genius respectively. Compared to the Great Kang residence, the Great Qin residence and the Great Zhu residence, their 4 residences were extremely weak. Thus, they had already secretly formed an alliance before coming here. They knew that if they did not form an alliance, they might be eliminated one by the other 3 residences. Only by joining forces would they have a chance at survival. Since the Great Kang Mansion had sent out Zhuowen, Chu Tian was more than enough to deal with him, so they naturally did not need to pay too much attention to him. Right now, the 3 of them needed to pay attention to the Great Zhu Mansion's Zhu Lan and the Great Qin Mansion's genius. As long as they eliminated those 2, the remaining spots would be a fair competition between the 4 of them. The 2 of us will deal with Zhu Lan. You go deal with the Great Qin Residence's Qin Mu. The genius from the Great Tang Mansion said to the genius from the Great Frame Mansion. Then, together with the genius from the Great Han Mansion, they rushed towards Zhu Lan. Each of them used their strongest moves in an attempt to eliminate Zhu Lan. Hee. They really overestimate themselves. The corners of Zhu Lan's mouth were filled with a sneer as he shouted in a low voice. Unknowingly, a pair of bronze axes had appeared in his hands. With a wave of his hands, an extremely frightening gale erupted from the axes, whistling as they shot towards the 2 geniuses from the Great Frame Mansion and the Great Han Mansion. The expressions of the 2 geniuses from the Great Frame Mansion and the Great Han Mansion slightly changed. They both took out their respective weapons and swung them together in an attempt to block the incoming axes. Bang! The sound of metal colliding rang out. Soon after, the expressions of the 2 geniuses from the Great Frame Mansion and the Great Han Mansion changed at the same time. They only felt an enormous force acting on their bodies, causing their forward momentum to abruptly freeze. Scram! Zhu Lan loudly shouted as the muscles in his hands swelled. Azure yuan power covered the large axes in his hands. Instantly, an azure glow erupted, causing the 2 geniuses from the Great Frame Mansion and the Great Han Mansion to fly backwards at the same time. When the 2 of them stabilized their bodies a dozen or so meters away, they were shocked to discover that the webbing between the thumb and index finger of their right hand, which held their weapons, had actually split open. Where are the 2 of you looking at? Just when the 2 geniuses from the Great Frame Mansion and the Great Han Mansion were shocked by Zhu Lan's strength, an indifferent voice resounded in their ears. Shortly after, the 2 of them turned around in shock. They instantly saw that Zhu Lan had unknowingly appeared behind the 2 of them. The pair of large axes whistled through the wind and swept towards them once again. Boom! Boom! Two muffled groans sounded out. Soon after, the two geniuses from the Great Frame Mansion and the Great Han Mansion were directly sent flying out of the stage by Julan's attack. Whoosh! Whoosh! The two mansion lords from the Great Frame Mansion and the Great Han Mansion respectively flew out and caught the two geniuses that were sent flying backwards. Their faces were slightly gloomy. They never imagined that their strongest geniuses would actually be unable to withstand two moves from Julan even after joining forces. The gap between them was simply too big. The instant the two geniuses from the Great Frame Mansion and the Great Han Mansion were eliminated, another figure was sent flying backwards. Soon after, the Great Tang Mansion's Mansion Lord caught this figure in his hands. Needless to say, this figure was naturally the strongest genius from the Great Tang Mansion. This genius opponent was the Great Qin Mansion's Qin Mu. However, he actually didn't last for long before being eliminated. It seemed like the gap between the four great mansions and the three great mansions was truly too big. There's still Chu Tian who hasn't been eliminated. The Great Chu Mansion's Mansion Lord wasn't happy at all. This was because the strength of the Great Ju Mansion's Julan and the Great Qin Mansion's Qin Mu was too terrifying. Even if Chu Tian defeated the Great Kang Mansion's Zhuoan, it wouldn't make any difference. There were still the two monsters, Julan and Qin Mu, waiting for him. At this moment, Zhuoan was casually exchanging blows with Chu Tian. At the same time, a portion of his attention was placed on Julan and Qin Mu. When he saw the two of them eliminating the geniuses from the Great Frame Mansion, the Great Tang Mansion, and the Great Han Mansion, a trace of astonishment appeared in his eyes. Although Julan and Qin Mu were also peak Heavenly Venerables, their battle strength was much stronger than ordinary peak Heavenly Venerables. However, they were still much weaker than first-level martial emperors. "I'm not playing with you anymore," Zhuoan indifferently said. Soon after, he clenched his right hand into a fist and withdrew it to his lower abdomen. His right foot stepped forward, and his right fist punched out. "You're still not playing with me? Do you think you're very strong?" Chu Tian was unable to restrain his anger when he heard Zhuoan's words. He coldly said as he drew a curved blade, raised it above his head, and fiercely chopped down. He wanted to cut Zhuoan in half. Break! Zhuoan's fist smashed onto the curved blade. Soon after, a blazing golden light erupted. The curved blade that was chopping down froze, and soon after, it directly shattered. The fist that was suffused with golden light continued forward, passing through countless fragments of the blade and smashing into Chu Tian's chest. Ugh! Chu Tian vomited a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. He was caught by the hands of the Great Chu Mansion chief, whose expression was ugly. From now on, the geniuses from the four great manors were basically all eliminated. Only the three geniuses from the Great Ju Mansion, the Great Qin Mansion and the Great Kang Mansion remained on the stage. Zhuoan's strength is not bad, but it should stop here. Whether it's Julan or Qin Mu, neither of them is someone that Zhuoan can deal with. Yarou Zhasheng crossed his arms as he spoke in a rather confident manner. Julan and Qin Mu, even if he wanted to deal with them, without paying a certain price, it would be difficult for him to win. Moreover, Yarou Zhasheng subconsciously believed that Zhuoan's strength was inferior to his, which was why he said that. Zhuoan is not simple. Perhaps there will be some unexpected results. Kang Jie softly chuckled. A cold light flashed in Yarou Zhasheng's and Kang Yang's eyes at the same time when they heard Kang Jie's words. In the adjacent seats, the corners of the Great Ju Mansion chief Ju Bin's mouth curled slightly as he said to the Great Qin Mansion chief Qin Xin, "Brother Qin, I'm afraid that Julan will be able to advance this time." Qin Xin's brows furrowed slightly as he shook his head and said, "Brother Ju, the results are not out yet. It's still too early to make a conclusion. Then let's wait and see the results of this battle." The corners of Ju Bin's mouth curled slightly. He was still very confident in Julan. Although Qin Mu's strength was not bad, he was able to tell with a single glance that there was still a gap between Qin Mu and Julan. As for the Great Kang Mansion's Zhuoan, he did not pay much attention to him. After all, the Great Kang Mansion should have sent out their weakest genius this time. How could the Great Kang Mansion's foundations compare to his Great Ju and Great Qin? "Brother Qin, looks like the spot for this battle will be decided between the two of us. Zhu Lan stared at Qin Mu as she spoke with overflowing battle intent. Qin Mu shrugged as he faintly smiled and said, "Actually, I've long wanted to experience Brother Zhu's strength. However, I've never had the chance before. This is a good opportunity." Zhu Lan and Qin Mu exchanged questions and answers, completely ignoring Zhuowen, who was standing to the side. Evidently, the two of them did not care about Zhuowen at all. "Are the two of you planning to ignore me?" Zhuowen slowly walked over as his clear voice rang out on the stage. Soon after, the expressions of Qin Mu and Zhu Lan, who were still conversing, turned slightly sluggish. The two of them turned their heads at the same time and coldly stared at Zhuowen. "Brother Zhu, I nearly forgot that there was still an ant here. I think our battle will have to be delayed for a while. I want to deal with this fellow first before fighting with you." As he spoke, Qin Mu stomped his feet and grabbed the air with his right hand. Suddenly, a broadsword appeared in his hand. Qin Mu waved his right hand and the broadsword came crashing down like a mountain. On the other hand, Zhu Lan quietly hovered in the air as she looked down at Zhuowen. In her opinion, it should be easy for Qin Mu to deal with Zhuowen. After all, Zhuowen's performance in the previous battle with Chu Tian was lukewarm. Therefore, the two of them did not pay much attention to Zhuowen. 7 kills. Zhuowen flicked his finger and the 7 kills blade appeared in his hand. Then, he bent his knees and stomped his feet on the ground. His entire body shot out like an arrow leaving the bow. A terrifying killing aura erupted from his body as 8 blood seas appeared in the air and appeared under Zhuowen's feet. Slash. Zhuowen gently slashed out. The 7 kills blade carried the might of the surging blood seas and heavily smashed onto Qin Mu's broadsword. Then, the latter felt a huge force that he could not resist. Then, he was directly suppressed by this force and flew out, falling to the ground like a meteorite. Rumble. However, just as Qin Mu was about to land on the ground, Zhuowen appeared in front of Qin Mu like a ghost. His left hand formed a palm and suddenly smashed into Qin Mu's chest. After which, Qin Mu let out a muffled groan and directly flew backwards, landing outside the arena. Boom. Chapter 1186. The second round. A smile emerged from the corners of Great Kang Manor's Kang Jie's mouth. Evidently, he was rather happy that Zhuowen had defeated Qin Mu. Standing behind Qin Mu, Yarou Zhesheng's brows were slightly furrowed. As for Kang Yang, he was as calm as still water. A battle between peak heavenly venerates was truly nothing in his eyes. Looks like this Zhuowen is truly not simple. I wonder if he will be a match for Zhu Lan? An amused smile appeared from the corners of Kang Jie's mouth. Her beautiful eyes were filled with anticipation. Humph. I believe that he is still no match for Zhu Lan. Yarou Zhesheng said in a somewhat unhappy voice. Kang Jie did not refute. Her beautiful eyes looked past Yarou Zhesheng and landed on Zhuowen. This scene caused Yarou Zhesheng's expression to become increasingly ugly. The great Qin Manor's master, Qin Xin, waved his sleeve. Surging yuan power gushed out and lifted Qin Mu, who had fallen off the stage, before placing him on the spectator stand. Manor Master, I've disappointed you. Qin Mu bowed slightly as his voice trembled. Qin Xin waved his hand and said, I know that you've done your best. The young man sent by the great Kang Manor is not simple. You should go and recuperate first. Qin Mu nodded. He silently walked to a spot behind Qin Xin and sat down. His back seemed to be somewhat down and out. Brother Qin, your great Qin Manor is somewhat lacking. To think that you would be defeated by a nameless young man. Zhu Bin smiled faintly. There was a trace of mockery in his voice. Qin Mu's gaze was dark as he coldly said, I believe that your great Zhu Institute's Zhu Lan will not gain any advantage against him. Heh. There is no need for Brother Qin to worry. Zhu Lan is still capable of dealing with him. Zhu Bin's eyes were filled with confidence. On the stage, Zhu Lan stared at Zhuowen in astonishment as she softly chuckled and said, Your strength is not bad. To think that you've defeated Qin Mu. It's all right. Now it's your turn. Zhuowen nodded. Soon after, he slowly walked towards Zhu Lan. This scene caused Zhu Lan's expression to turn sluggish. Soon after, her gaze turned cold as she said, Looks like you're very confident. However, your confidence will not last for long. As she spoke, Zhu Lan took a step forward and the bronze axes in her hands whizzed out. In an instant, she appeared in front of Zhuowen. Her hands clasped together and the two axes in her hands chopped towards Zhuowen in the middle, intending to completely pulverize him. Whoosh! Zhuowen, on the other hand, was not afraid. He slashed out with the 7 kills saber in his hand. 8 blood seas rushed out like 8 blood pythons and enveloped Zhuowen's body, forming a blood-colored defense. Bang! The huge axes swept over and smashed onto the 8 blood seas. Following that, Zhu Lan only felt the huge axes in her hands become sluggish. The axes that hacked onto the blood seas were actually completely sluggish, unable to move in the slightest. Kill. In the instant that Zhu Lan's body froze due to the sea of blood, Zhuowen slashed out with his saber, fiercely slamming into Zhu Lan's dual axes. Bang! The sound of metal clashing rang out. Following that, Zhu Lan let out a muffled groan and retreated dozens of steps. The instant that he stabilized his body, Zhuowen instantly arrived. The 7 kills saber in his hand slashed out again and again. Countless saber shadows wreaked havoc like a storm. In the midst of these terrifying saber shadows, Zhu Lan was like a small boat in the middle of the sea that could capsize at any time. Bastard! Zhu Lan cursed in anger. However, his heart was filled with fear. Zhuowen's attack was actually so swift and fierce that it was beyond his expectations. Falling Phoenix Slash. As she spoke, Zhu Lan suddenly raised her dual axes. Suddenly, a green glow burst out from the blades of the dual axes. Following that, the terrifying green glow converged into a green phoenix that soared into the sky and charged towards Zhuowen. Life destruction. Zhuowen did not hold back. The 7 kills saber slashed out horizontally. The space behind him split open and an extremely large blood-colored saber shadow swept out. This saber shadow was very powerful and it rumbled as it came crashing down. Rumble. The blood-colored saber shadow and the green phoenix collided. Soon after, an extremely terrifying explosive energy erupted from the two. However, this explosion only lasted for a moment before the green phoenix emitted a mournful wail. Soon after, the blood-colored saber shadow descended and chopped the green phoenix into pieces. Zhu Lan's pupils shrunk when he saw the green phoenix that was instantly destroyed. With a muffled groan, he spat out a large mouthful of blood and retreated dozens of steps. His face was as pale as snow. Swoosh! In the instant that Zhu Lan retreated, Zhuowen took a step in the air and shot out like an arrow from a bow. In the instant that Zhu Lan's strength was exhausted, Zhuowen slashed out with his blade. Zhu Lan's expression greatly changed. He held his 2 axes horizontally, wanting to block Zhuowen's attack. Bang! Weapons clashed as Zhu Lan once again spat out a mouthful of blood. He was sent flying and landed outside the stage. Bang! The instant Zhu Lan smashed onto the ground, the surrounding atmosphere once again fell into a stagnant state. Even the smile on the Great Zhu Institute's headmaster Zhu Bin's face had completely frozen. Zhuowen has actually won, haha. Cangjie was the first to react as he laughed out loud. His eyes were filled with mirth. On the viewing platform, Kang Dai's beautiful eyes curved slightly like crescent moons, as if she had already expected this outcome. As for Yarou Zhusheng, his brows were slightly furrowed. He did not expect that Zhuowen would actually defeat Zhu Lan. Swoosh! Zhuowen slowly landed on the viewing platform. Cangjie stood up and patted Zhuowen's shoulders with both hands as he smiled and said, "Zhuowen, you've done well this time. You've won the first match and given our great Kang Institute a good start." Zhuowen smiled faintly. Just as he was about to speak, Yarou Zhusheng's ambiguous voice sounded. In the first match, the Great Zhu Institute and Great Qin Institute sent out their weakest geniuses. There's nothing special about winning. There's indeed nothing special about it. I wonder if Brother Yarou will be able to win the second match. Zhuowen faintly smiled. Upon hearing these words, the iciness in Yarou Zhusheng's eyes gradually thickened as he icily replied, "Of course. Then I look forward to Brother Yarou's performance in the second match." Zhuowen softly chuckled, not minding the mockery in Yarou Zhusheng's words as he calmly walked to Kang Dai's side. Yarou Zhusheng's brows furrowed slightly, but he did not know what to say. Looks like you've hidden your strength rather well. Although Ju Lan is the weakest amongst the 5 geniuses of the Great Ju Institute, she is still much stronger than an ordinary peak heavenly venerate. Kang Dai softly chuckled. Zhuowen shook his head and nonchalantly said, "My luck is rather good. Ju Lan is indeed rather strong." Upon hearing these words, Kang Dai deeply glanced at Zhuowen. She could also hear the evasive intent in Zhuowen's words. It was obvious that he did not wish to discuss this matter any further. She was a smart woman and knew when to stop. In the Great Ju Institute seating area, Ju Lan lowered her head and walked to Ju Bin's side. Her legs trembled slightly as she said, "Headmaster." Ju Bin waved his sleeve and coldly said, "No need to say anything, go to the back." Ju Lan's gaze flickered. In the end, he could only nod his head. Soon after, he dejectedly walked to an inconspicuous corner at the back of the seats. The other 4 geniuses from the Great Ju Institute did not even glance at Ju Lan. In their minds, a loser did not need any sympathy or pity. Why have I never heard of this young man called Zhuowen before? He should not be a genius from the Great Kang Manor. Ju Bin's gaze landed on Zhuowen in the Great Kang Manor's seating area as his eyes narrowed and he softly muttered, "Let the second match begin." Kang Jie slowly stood up, his face flushed red. Zhuowen's victory in the first match was a pleasant surprise for him. The other 6 headmasters naturally did not have any objections and each sent out their second genius. The Great Kang Manor sent out Yarou Zhusheng. What was worth noting was that the Great Qin Manor had sent out their strongest genius, Qin Lei. His cultivation was similar to Kang Yang's, the first layer emperor stage. The Great Qin Manor's unexpected move had caught the other 6 headmasters somewhat unprepared. The result of the second match went without saying. The Great Qin Manor naturally won, while Yarou Zhusheng was unlucky enough to be eliminated. After the second match, Yarou Zhusheng sullenly returned to his seat. When he saw Zhuowen's faintly discernible mocking gaze, his mood immediately sank. "It seems that I have overestimated Brother Yarou. It seems that Brother Yarou did not win the second match as you said," Zhuowen indifferently said. Yarou Zhusheng's expression froze, and the veins on his forehead bulged. He coldly said, "You can only say that you were lucky. The first match was against weaklings. The second match was against the Great Qin Manor's Qin Lei. It's normal for you to lose." "Haha. Brother Yarou is right. It's normal for you to lose," Zhuowen said meaningfully. Yarou Zhusheng's eyes narrowed as he looked at Zhuowen with fury. However, with Kang Jie in the seating area, he could not flare up. He could only coldly say, "Actually, I am quite looking forward to your match against Qin Lei. At that time, you will know how lowly you are." Perhaps. Zhuowen no longer argued with Yarou Zhusheng. Instead, his gaze landed on the stage above. At this moment, the third match had begun. The Great Kang Manor had sent out their strongest genius, Kang Yang. The Great Ju Manor, Great Qin Manor, and Great Kang Manor seemed to have reached some kind of agreement. They did not deliberately let the Emperor Realm cultivators clash in the first round, and instead let them advance to the second round one by one. After all, Emperor Realm cultivators were the geniuses of their respective prefectures. If they encountered one in the first round, the losses would outweigh the gains. Kang Yang was an Emperor Realm cultivator. With a single move, he swept out all the geniuses from the other 6 great prefectures. Afterwards, he leisurely landed on his seat with his chin slightly raised. He did not even glance at the others, as if they were not worthy of his attention. For the fourth match, the Great Ju Manor sent out their second genius, Ju Hui. This Ju Hui was also a first heaven emperor, and he won the fourth match. For the fifth match, the Great Ju Manor sent out their number 1 genius, Ju Chang. Ju Chang's cultivation seemed to be at the first heaven emperor realm, but it was said that he had reached the peak of the first heaven emperor realm, and was even stronger than Ju Hui. Naturally, he won the fifth match without exception. However, Zhuowen faintly felt that this Ju Chang was not simple. It was likely that the aura he revealed was not his true strength. Thus, the 5 battles were completely over. The remaining 5 cultivators advanced to the second round. These 5 were the Great Qin Manor's Qin Lei, the Great Ju Manor's Ju Hui and Ju Chang, and the Great Kang Manor's Zhuowen and Kang Yang. Chapter 1187. Cheongchi Copper Sword Sungjie stood up and announced in a clear voice, "The first round has ended. Now, we will proceed to the second round. The rules of the second round are also very simple. The winners will fight in pairs, and the losers will be eliminated. Because there are 5 people, one of them will definitely be given a bye." The 4 great mansion masters of the Great Frame Mansion, the Great Han Mansion, the Great Tang Mansion and the Great Chu Mansion did not say anything. They stood numbly in their seats without making a sound. This was because practically all the geniuses from their 4 great manors had been eliminated in the first round. The remaining ones were basically the geniuses from the Great Ju Mansion, the Great Qin Mansion and the Great Kang Mansion. The Great Ju Mansion's Ju Bin and the Great Qin Mansion's Qin Shin naturally did not have any objections. Now, let's begin drawing lots. Only one person will be the champion of the hero gathering this time. Whoever wins will obtain the right to gather the map fragments from the prefecture that person belongs to. After Sungjie finished speaking, he waved his sleeve and 5 light sticks flew out from his hand. Extremely intimidating light exploded from the eyes of the 5 people standing on the stage. One by one, they extended their right hands and received the exposed light sticks into their palms. Zhuowen beckoned with his right hand and received a light stick. After flipping it over, he was astonished to discover that the light stick he had drawn was actually an empty stick. In other words, he was the one who had been given a bye this time. The 5 of you can reveal your light sticks. Among these 5 light sticks, one of them is an empty stick. Which one of you has obtained it? Sungjie asked in an indifferent voice. When these words were spoken, the gazes of quite a few people gathered on the 5 people below the stage. Being able to draw an empty stick was undoubtedly extremely good luck. After all, they did not need to fight this time. Being able to maintain their peak condition for the next battle was extremely beneficial to the 5 of them. Zhuowen did not conceal anything. With a flip of his right hand, the light stick was brought out and he said, "The empty stick is in my hand." Because of Zhuowen's action, the surrounding atmosphere also became quiet. Obviously, no one had expected that the lucky one to draw an empty lot would be the one with the lowest cultivation among the 5, Zhuowen. Many people sighed at Zhuowen's good luck. On the other hand, the other 4 geniuses in the arena looked straight ahead. They did not care that Zhuowen had drawn an empty lot. After all, Zhuowen's cultivation was at the peak of the Heavenly Master realm. He posed no threat to the 4 of them. From the beginning, they had already ignored Zhuowen's existence. Sungjie was stunned at first, but then he smiled and said, "Zhuowen, since you have drawn the blank lot, you can come down first." Zhuowen nodded his head and leaped down, returning to the Great Kang Manor's seat. As soon as he returned to his seat, Yarou Zhesheng's mocking voice sounded out again. "Yo, your luck is pretty good. You were actually able to draw an empty lot. Looks like you can still stay in this hero assembly for a while." Zhuowen completely ignored Yarou Zhesheng's sarcastic eyes. He walked past him, came to the corner of his seat, and stood quietly. Kang Dai, who was standing on the other side, walked to Zhuowen's side. With a sweet smile on her face, she said softly, "Zhuowen, your luck is pretty good. You were actually able to draw an empty lot. However, I think that even if you did not draw an empty lot, you should still be able to advance to the next battle, right?" Hearing this, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and took a deep look at Kang Dai. This woman's cultivation did not seem high, but her eyes revealed the brilliance of wisdom, which made Zhuowen's heart faintly raise a trace of vigilance. This Kang Dai was not simple. How can Miss Kang Dai be so sure? I am only a peak heavenly venerate. How can I compete with those Emperor Realm cultivators? Zhuowen smiled faintly. Because you look too calm. There can only be 2 reasons why you can remain so calm while standing beside 4 Emperor Realm geniuses. The first is that you are deliberately pretending, and the second is that you have a certain level of confidence. Confidence requires great strength to support it. Moreover, I can't see any signs of you pretending. Kang Dai softly smiled. Zhuowen glanced at Kang Dai and said, "Perhaps." At this moment, the 4 people on the stage had also revealed their respective glowing lots. The Great Qin Manor's Qin Lei against the Great Ju Institute's Ju Hui, and the great Kang Mana's Kang Yang against the great Ju Institute's Ju Chang. When these matchups were revealed, Kang Je frowned slightly. He did not expect Kang Yang to face Ju Chang so early. Ju Chang was the #1 genius of the Great Ju Institute and had entered the first-layer Emperor realm a year earlier than Kang Yang. Moreover, it was said that Ju Chang had previously been in seclusion in the Great Ju Institute and had only recently emerged. No one knew how strong Ju Chang was now. Therefore, when he saw Kang Yang against Ju Chang, Kang Je's brows were tightly knitted together as a trace of ominous feeling rose in his heart. Although he was worried about Kang Yang, Kang Je also knew that since his opponent had already been decided, it naturally could not be casually changed. Thinking of this, Kang Je's right hand reached out into the void. Immediately, a terrifying mighty force burst out from his sleeve. This mighty force was very frightening. When it acted on the stage in the air, it immediately split the huge stage into two. The two stages quietly and magnificently floated 100 meters in the air. Swoosh swoosh. Ju Hui and Qin Lei leaped onto the stage on the left, while Ju Chang and Kang Yang leaped onto the stage on the right. 4 terrifying emperor auras, like towering mountains, caused the surrounding atmosphere to immediately freeze. At the same time, the winds and clouds in the sky changed. 4 emperor stars of different colors descended below and landed around the 4 figures. 4 different types of star power diffused outwards, appearing very dazzling. Now, let the battle begin, Kang Je said indifferently. Immediately, 4 terrifying yuan qi fluctuations burst out from the 2 stages. What followed was an intense collision. Every time Emperor Realm cultivators clashed, the aftershocks would have a terrifying power that could shake the heavens and the earth. On the stage, when everyone saw the Emperor auras diffusing from the stage, their hearts trembled and their eyes were filled with reverence. Qin Lei and Ju Hui's cultivation and strength were about the same, so the two of them clashed fiercely. It was almost a head-on collision, and it was difficult to tell who had the upper hand. After dozens of rounds, both of them took out their respective emperor weapons. Qin Lei's weapon was a long golden spear that was about 10 feet long. The tip of the golden spear was in the shape of a snake, and the body of the spear was covered with golden lines like a golden python. Ju Hui's emperor weapon was a large bronze bell. When he punched the surface of the bell, a deafening sound was produced. Moreover, the sound waves of the bell also had a terrifying offensive power. Boom! After taking out their emperor weapons, the collision between Qin Lei and Ju Hui became even more intense. The surging yuan qi fluctuations caused the stage under their feet to shake violently. Traces of cracks appeared on the surface of the stage, as if it would shatter at any time. While Qin Lei and Ju Hui were clashing fiercely, on the other stage, Ju Chang and Kang Yang were facing each other. Kang Yang looked at Ju Chang fearfully. When Ju Chang had broken through to the Emperor realm, Kang Yang had only been a late-stage heavenly master. Now that a few years had passed, he naturally didn't believe that Ju Chang hadn't improved at all. He even suspected that Ju Chang had broken through to the second heaven Emperor realm. However, what puzzled him was that Ju Chang's aura was still around first-level Emperor realm. This made Kang Yang hesitate. Ju Chang's hair was as black as ink, and his eyes were like stars. He had a tall nose and an imposing appearance. He was like a treasured sword that revealed its sharpness. He was like a rare dragon that only appeared once in 100 years. Just by standing there quietly, he could involuntarily attract everyone's attention. At this moment, Ju Chang slowly walked over. His eyes flashed with sharpness as they fell on Kang Yang. He said indifferently, "Kang Yang, go ahead." Kang Yang frowned slightly and snorted coldly. He took a step forward and 9 exploding golden stars surrounded his body. Then, Kang Yang whistled like a storm and instantly appeared in front of Ju Chang. His right hand formed a claw and pressed down on the void. Suddenly, a violent wind blew and the 9 exploding golden stars smashed down one after another like 9 meteorites. Ju Chang's eyes were as calm as still water. He took a step forward and waved his right hand. Instantly, the 9 bronze stars floating in the void behind him began to move in a strange trajectory, forming a huge bronze giant. The bronze giant punched out. Boom! 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 Kang Yang's 9 exploding golden stars exploded into countless golden dust under the bronze giant's punch. Kang Yang's expression changed drastically and he took a few steps back. Boom, boom, boom. The bronze giant followed closely behind. Its fan-like hand descended from the sky and grabbed at Kang Yang again, trying to grab him. Kang Yang's eyes turned cold. He flicked his finger and a snake-shaped halberd landed in his palm. Then, he twisted his right palm and the snake-shaped halberd shot out like a drill. The halberd pierced through the bronze giant's palm. Break! Kang Yang shouted in a low voice, and the great halberd in the shape of a snake burst out with a blazing green light. This green light turned into a huge green python, and this python stuck out its tongue and coiled around the bronze giant. Crack! The giant green python possessed an extremely terrifying entanglement ability. This entanglement ability possessed the strength of 1,000 catties and it ruthlessly restrained the giant green python. Soon after, the sound of bones cracking was emitted. The bronze giant had actually been directly shattered by the giant green python's entanglement. Swoosh! When the bronze giant was crushed, the light in Kang Yang's eyes became even more intense. He took a step forward and the snake-shaped halberd landed in his palm. His entire body rushed out like a butterfly. The sharp whistling sound produced by the halberd rubbing against the air was ear-piercing. Zhu Chang frowned slightly. Clearly, the destruction of the bronze giant was beyond his expectations. He snorted coldly. He knew that Kang Yang's snake-shaped halberd was a genuine emperor weapon. If he did not use his emperor weapon, he would be at a disadvantage. With a flick of his finger, a bronze longsword appeared in Zhu Chang's right hand. The longsword was made of bronze. The bronze longsword's hilt was carved with the head of a strange beast. The strange beast opened its mouth as if it wanted to swallow the entire bronze sword. This is the Cheong Qi bronze sword. It has merged with a strand of the essence blood of the ancient fierce beast, Cheong Qi. It contains a strand of Cheong Qi's ferocious power. You will still lose. Chapter 1188. A slight possibility this roar had the power to shake the heavens and split the earth. The entire arena shook violently as a ring-shaped sound wave spread out. It swept out at the speed of sound and instantly enveloped Kang Yang. Dragon Snake Evolution. Kang Yang's face changed slightly. He stepped to the side and waved the snake-shaped halberd in his right hand. Suddenly, a powerful qi burst out and formed a strange creature that looked like a snake but wasn't a snake. It looked like a dragon but wasn't a dragon. This dragon snake's body was extremely huge, nearly 100 feet long. Its huge body was wrapped in layers, enveloping Kang Yang's entire body. Its bright scales formed an extremely strong defense. Boom! Boom! The ring-shaped sound wave spread out and landed heavily on the dragon snake's body. However, it was completely blocked by the dragon snake's tough scales. When the sound wave disappeared, the dragon snake slowly separated, revealing Kang Yang, whose face was somewhat pale. Interesting. Kang Yang, it seems like you're about to reach the second level of the Emperor Realm. Zhu Chang smiled as he looked at Kang Yang. Kang Yang was not excited by Zhu Chang's praise. Instead, his eyes darkened as he said coldly, "You broke through?" Zhu Chang didn't say anything. Instead, he smiled confidently and asked, "What do you think?" As he spoke, Zhu Chang took a step forward. An aura that was even more terrifying than before swept out. This aura was like 10,000 horses galloping, like a hurricane, like a tsunami, like the dark clouds in the sky, crushing down. It was as if an extremely terrifying mountain was pressing down on the entire arena. Zhu Chang's long hair fluttered in the wind, and his sleeves fluttered in the wind. He gave off a dignified aura without being angry. His eyes were as dazzling as the stars in the night sky, and the light from the 9 emperor stars was much more intense than before. It was as if Zhu Chang had become a different person in an instant. Ting! Sungjie suddenly stood up and muttered with an ugly expression, "Zhu Chang has reached the second level of the Emperor Realm." Has he really reached the second level of the Emperor Realm? Everyone in the Great Kang Mansion was shocked. No one had expected that Zhu Chang had been hiding his aura all this while, pretending to be a First Heaven Emperor Realm expert. Now that he had unleashed his aura, Kang Yang was going to suffer. In the Institute of Great Ju's seating area, Ju Bin crossed his arms, a smile on his face. Ju Chang had emerged from seclusion 3 months ago. At that time, he had already successfully broken through to the second layer of the Martial Emperor realm. The reason why he had pretended to be a first-layer Martial Emperor was to create this effect under such circumstances. Ju Bin also knew that once Ju Chang revealed his second Heaven Emperor realm cultivation, the victory of this hero assembly would definitely belong to his great Kang Manor. Thinking that he would be able to obtain the complete map of the Great Devil Sect ruins, Ju Bin couldn't help but feel excited. Although he knew that after the ancient ruins of 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 the ancient ruins. The complete map of the Great Devil Sect ruins represented that one had the greatest chance of obtaining the greatest benefits from the Great Devil Sect. Therefore, this was the main reason why the 7 great mansion masters were rushing over like ducks. On the stage, Ju Chang stood quietly. His eyes fell on the pale-faced Kang Yang as he said indifferently, "You should give up now. You should know the difference between the second Heaven Emperor realm and the first Heaven Emperor realm." Kang Yang's eyes flickered and his face was filled with unwillingness. Then, as if he had made up his mind, he took the initiative to charge towards Ju Chang with the snake halberd in his hand. "Although you have reached the second Heaven Emperor realm, I won't give up without trying." Kang Yang's cold voice rang out as he arrived in front of Ju Chang in an instant. Then, he swung his right hand forward and the dragon snake behind him roared. It opened its bloody mouth and tried to swallow Ju Chang whole. "Is this your final struggle?" Ju Chang shook his head and a mocking look appeared on his face. Then, he slashed out with the bronze sword in his right hand. At the same time, he took a step forward with the bronze sword. Green sword shadows shot out like thousands of arrows and landed on the dragon snake that was charging towards him. Bang! 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 Then, a dazzling ball of light exploded. When the ball of light disappeared, Ju Chang took a step forward. At this moment, the dragon snake was covered in wounds after being attacked by the sword shadows just now. Swoosh! Swoosh! Ju Chang slashed out with the bronze sword in his hand. The green sword light was like a green crescent moon as it slammed heavily on the dragon snake's chest. The green sword light paused for a moment before it pierced through the dragon snake's chest without any hindrance. Puff! The green sword light swept past and the dragon snake seemed to have frozen in midair. Then, it let out a sorrowful cry and shattered into countless light spots. Bang! The sword light was like a rainbow as it passed through the dragon snake and continued to rush towards Kang Yang at the back. Its speed had risen to the limit. Kang Yang's face was dark as he took a step forward. With a twist of his right hand, the snake-shaped halberd in his hand suddenly shot out. The halberd's forked tip suddenly blocked the sword light. Boom! An explosion rang out and Kang Yang was forced back dozens of steps until he reached the edge of the stage. Terrifying Yuan power had shattered the sword light. However, Kang Yang was not in a good condition either. His face was as pale as snow and a trace of cherry-red blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. His right hand, which was holding onto the snake-shaped halberd, was violently trembling. "Didn't I tell you before? You are struggling before your death. If you had given up earlier, you wouldn't have had to suffer such pain." Just as Kang Yang stabilized his body, an indifferent voice rang out. Kang Yang's heart trembled as he suddenly raised his head. He saw that Ju Chang had unknowingly appeared above him. The bronze sword in Ju Chang's right hand suddenly slashed out. The green sword light swept out vertically and ruthlessly smashed down. Bang! Kang Yang raised both of his hands, and the serpentine halberd attempted to block the attack. Soon after, the sound of metal clashing rang out, and the serpentine halberd was directly sent flying. Kang Yang spat out a mouthful of blood, and heavily smashed down from the stage, landing outside of it. The sound of a heavy object falling to the ground rang out, causing the originally quiet stage to become even quieter. Everyone's gaze first fell on Kang Yang, who was lying on the ground. Then, they shifted their gaze to the stage. Zhu Chang's robe and messy hair were fluttering in the wind. The slightly stagnant atmosphere did not last for long. Then, there was a burst of gasps. Zhu Chang was terrifying. Kang Yang was the #1 genius of the Great Kang Mansion and a genius at the peak of the first-level Emperor realm who had touched the second-level Emperor realm. However, he was defeated by Zhu Chang in just a few moves. Zhu Chang is so terrifying. It seems like the winner of the hero competition will be Zhu Chang. Everyone looked at Zhu Chang with eyes filled with respect. Kang Jie's gaze was extremely gloomy. The other people who belonged to the Great Kang Mansion also fell into silence. For a moment, the Great Kang Mansion's seats were extremely solemn. Kang Jie let out a low sigh. He waved his sleeve and brought Kang Yang, who had fallen to the ground, back. Kang Yang's current condition was quite miserable. His robe was torn in many places, his hair was messy, blood was flowing out from the corner of his mouth, and his gaze was slightly unfocused. Mansion Master, I'm sorry. As soon as he landed, Kang Yang quickly knelt on the ground with one knee and lowered his head. Kang Jie waved his hand and said helplessly, "It's not your fault. Zhu Chang is indeed too strong. After all, the former has advanced to the second-level Emperor realm. With your current cultivation, it's not possible for you to be his opponent. Now, you should go down and recuperate." Kang Yang nodded and walked slowly to the back seat. He sat cross-legged on the ground and began to recuperate from his injuries. This time, his defeat was not unjustified. No one had expected Zhu Chang's cultivation to have reached the second-level Emperor realm. Therefore, Kang Jie felt somewhat helpless. Bang! Not long after Kang Yang's defeat, another miserable figure fell from the stage. This person was dressed in golden robes and had a somewhat sinister gaze. It was the Great Qin Mansion's Qin Lei. Qin Lei's opponent, Zhu Hui, was not in a good condition either. His body was covered in wounds, and he was panting heavily. His clothes were tattered. Although Zhu Hui had won, it was a Pyrrhic victory. Given his current condition, he probably did not have the strength to fight another match. The Great Qin Mansion's Mansion Master Qin Shin's face was a little purple. With a wave of his sleeve, he brought the extremely miserable Qin Lei back to his seat. After losing a portion of his yuan power, Qin Lei's condition had improved a lot. Haha. Kang Jie, I think there's no need for the next round. The results are already very clear. My Great Zhu Mansion has won both rounds. This map fragment should belong to my Great Zhu Mansion. Zhu Bin's laughter was exceptionally loud. His ear-piercing voice resounded throughout the entire stage, causing many people's eardrums to hurt. Although Zhu Bin's loud and clear voice made quite a few people unhappy, what Zhu Bin had said was indeed the truth. There were only 3 people left, Zhu Chang, Zhu Hui and Zhuo Wen. Zhu Chang and Zhu Hui were both geniuses of the Great Zhu Institute, while Zhuo Wen was only a genius of the Great Kang Prefecture. More importantly, Zhuo Wen was only a mere peak heavenly venerate. Let alone Zhu Chang, who was a second-level emperor, Zhuo Wen was probably not even a match for Zhu Hui, who was a first-level emperor. Looks like the Great Demon Sect's map fragment will have to be handed over to the Great Zhu Mansion. Yarou Zhasheng softly sighed. That may not be the case. Isn't there still one more person from our Great Kang Mansion? Zhuo Wen hasn't even gone up yet. Kang Jie's clear voice suddenly rang out. However, her words drew mocking laughter from many people. Among them, Yarou Zhasheng sneered as he cast a sideways glance at Zhuo Wen, who was silently standing to one side, and chuckled, "Junior sister Kang Jie, do you really think highly of this guy? He's only a peak heavenly venerate. What power does he have to turn the tide? He will only embarrass the Great Kang Mansion if he goes up." Kang Jie also shook her head slightly and sighed softly. Yarou Zhasheng is right. Zhuo Wen's cultivation is indeed a little low. Even Kang Yang has been defeated. The victory belongs to the Great Zhu Mansion. Chapter 1189. Chaotic Mortal World. A trace of astonishment flashed across Cangjie's eyes when he saw the smile on Zhuo Wen's face. On the other hand, Yarou Zhasheng took a step forward and pointed at Zhuo Wen as he said, "That's enough. With your cultivation, You will only be making a fool of yourself. You can afford to lose face, but our great Kang Mana can't. Do you really think you're a god emperor? Boom. Just as Yarou Zhasheng finished his sentence, a golden light burst forth, bringing with it an unparalleled aura as it slammed into his chest. Yarou Zhasheng's expression changed slightly as he raised both of his hands. The yuan force in his body circulated crazily as he pushed both of his hands in an attempt to block the sudden golden light. Crack! The crisp sound of bones cracking abruptly rang out. Soon after, Yarou Zhasheng let out a miserable shriek as he was sent flying from his seat and heavily smashed into the ground below. Zhuowen silently withdrew his fist and stood there, looking down at Yarou Zhasheng who had fallen onto his seat. That streak of golden light was the result of Zhuowen's Buddhist power. After cultivating the great sun nirvana to the point of immortality and indestructibility, Zhuowen's strength had increased by hundreds and thousands. A mere peak heavenly venerate was indeed unable to cause any harm to him. Yarou Zhasheng's hands were practically twisted and trembling. His gaze towards Zhuowen was already filled with fear. How did Zhuowen's strength become so terrifying? A single punch was enough to cripple his hands. Was this still the strength of a peak heavenly venerate? Cangjie looked at Zhuowen in astonishment. Evidently, the ease with which Zhuowen had defeated Yarou Zhasheng was somewhat out of his expectations. Mana Master, don't tell me you don't even dare to try. Zhuowen suddenly smiled. A blazing light flashed in Cangjie's eyes when he heard these words. He slapped his thigh and said, "Since you have such intentions, I'll accompany you in your madness. Go up and give it a try this time." At this moment, Zhu Bin in the Great Zhu Institute seating area was already somewhat impatient. He stared at Cangjie and said, "Cangjie, the situation is already very clear. How long do you plan to drag this out?" Many people below the stage also looked at Cangjie in astonishment. Evidently, their thoughts were similar to Zhu Bin's. The situation was already very clear and there was no need to hesitate. Cangjie slowly stood up and said indifferently, "Zhu Bin, the hero assembly isn't over yet. Why are you in such a hurry?" Zhu Bin's eyes darkened when he heard these words. He coldly said, "What do you mean by this? Don't tell me you still intend to fight. With the little peak heavenly venerate beside you?" Cangjie didn't say anything, but Zhuowen stepped out and came to the arena. He said loudly, "I haven't been eliminated yet, have I? Why are you in such a hurry?" Cangjie. Everyone below the stage was stunned when they heard that. On the stage, Zhu Hui and Zhu Chang also focused their gazes on Zhuowen, whose aura was at the peak of the heavenly exalt stage. Their eyes were filled with curiosity. In the Great Zhu Institute seating area, Zhu Bin was first taken aback. Soon after, he laughed heartily as if he had heard the funniest joke in the world. You plan to continue fighting. You, a peak heavenly venerate, plan to fight the first-level heavenly venerate Zhu Hui and the second-level heavenly venerate Zhu Chang? Ha. The other cultivators in the Great Zhu Institute seating area also laughed without the slightest restraint. Even many of the spectators below the stage laughed along. Everyone believed that Zhuowen was absolutely crazy. A peak heavenly venerate actually planned to fight two heavenly venerate emperors, one of whom was even a second-level heavenly venerate emperor. You're just an ant who overestimates himself. On the stage, Zhu Hui, who was originally sitting cross-legged and recuperating, slowly stood up. The gaze he used to look at Zhuowen became extremely dark. Zhu Chang silently stood on the other side. He only glanced at Zhuowen once before no longer paying any attention. He did not even place a first-level heavenly venerate emperor in his eyes, let alone a mere peak heavenly venerate like Zhuowen. Cangjie coldly said, "Zhuowen is right. He has not been eliminated. The following battles still need to continue." The laughter in the surroundings gradually died down after hearing Cangjie's words. Although many people did not quite understand Cangjie's actions, this hero assembly was ultimately organized by him. The decision was still in Cangjie's hands. Since the great Kang Mana still wants to continue, let's continue. Zhu Bin crossed his arms and sneered. Cangjie nodded. Soon after, he waved his sleeve and 3 more light sticks shot out. Zhuowen, Zhu Chang and Zhu Hui each took a light stick. Zhuowen flipped his right hand and saw the worder on the surface of the light stick. His luck was clearly not the same as the previous time where he had drawn an empty stick. Those who have drawn an empty stick, show me your empty stick and step out. Cangjie indifferently said. Zhu Chang slowly stepped forward. The light stick in his hand was completely blank. Evidently, the empty stick had landed in Zhu Chang's hand. Then you can step down first. Cangjie nodded. Zhu Chang naturally had no objections and slowly walked down the stage. However, when he passed by Zhu Hui, his soft voice sounded, against an ant like this, be quick and decisive. Finish him off as soon as possible. Zhu Hui nodded and laughed sinisterly. Don't worry, Brother Chang, I will finish off this ant in one move. Zhu Hui's voice was not soft. Perhaps he had purposely raised his voice so that Zhuowen could hear him. Zhu Chang nodded and took a step forward. He left the stage and landed in the Great Zhu Institute's seating area. His hands were behind his back as he silently watched everything unfold on the stage. Overestimating yourself. So what if you have strength that far surpasses an ordinary peak heavenly venerate? A heavenly venerate is still a heavenly venerate. At this moment, Yarou Zhasheng had also returned to the Great Kang Manor's seating area. His gaze was dark and cold to the extreme. He had completely lost face this time. Both of his hands had been crippled by Zhuowen in a single move. This was a vicious slap to his face. Although his hands had already been repaired, the humiliation of being slapped in the face was something that he would never forget. Kang Yang, who was seated at the back, merely took a glance at the arena before he continued to recuperate in a disinterested manner. His thoughts were the same as Yarou Zhasheng's. They both believed that Zhuowen was overestimating himself. On the stage, Zhuowen's gaze was indifferent as he asked, "You plan on finishing me off in one move?" Zhu Hui's hands clenched as he chuckled, "One move is already too much for me. Overestimating ant, get lost." With a low roar, Zhu Hui's feet pushed off the ground as he shot forward like an arrow. The howling wind was like the wild neighing of horse hooves. When he was within 5 meters of Zhuowen, his fists came from both sides and hammered towards Zhuowen. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. The 7 murders blade in his right hand was unsheathed. Massacring aura was released as 8 blood seas revolved around his body like 8 blood-colored armor. Boom! Zhu Hui's fist was stopped in front of the blood-colored armor, causing Zhu Hui's brows to furrow slightly. With a cold snort, the yuan power on his fists grew even more terrifying. Crack! The blood-colored escape armor instantly shattered, and the pair of fists continued to press down on Zhuowen, who was within the blood-colored escape armor. However, Zhu Hui was stunned to discover that his fists had struck empty air. There was no one behind the blood-colored escape armor. Destruction of life. At this moment, an indifferent voice came from behind Zhu Hui. Zhu Hui suddenly turned his head and saw Zhuowen's cold gaze. With 3 pairs of lightning wings on his back, Zhu Hui raised the 7 murders blade above his head and slashed downwards. Rumble. A thunderous sound rang out. Following which, a blood-colored blade shadow that was dozens of feet long descended from the crack in space and fell towards Zhu Hui's head. Zhu Hui was caught off guard. He could only raise his hands and the surging palm energy in his palms spat out, forming a flickering green shield in front of him. Bang! The blood-colored blade shadow heavily slammed onto the green shield. Immediately, an ear-piercing explosion erupted. The blazing light caused many people below the stage to squint their eyes and blur their vision. When their vision gradually became clear, a muffled groan was heard. Following which, a rather burly figure retreated from the ball of light, only stopping when he reached the edge. Everyone's gaze fell on the retreating figure. When they saw that the figure was Zhu Hui, they all revealed a look of disbelief. Zhu Hui, who was at the first-level Emperor realm, had clashed with Zhuowen, who was at the peak of the heavenly sovereign realm. However, Zhu Hui was the one who had retreated. Swoosh! An air-rending sound rang out. Zhuowen was not going to let Zhu Hui off. He swept his leg over and slashed out with the 7 murders blade in his right hand. The blood-colored blade shadow appeared again and rushed towards Zhu Hui. He wanted to eliminate Zhu Hui with this move. Bastard! You've gone too far. Zhu Hui roared. He flicked his finger and took out his emperor weapon, the bronze bell. He slammed his right fist on the bell and a ring-shaped sound wave spread out, forming layers of energy ripples. The moment the blood-colored blade shadow collided with the sound wave, its forward momentum stagnated as if it had fallen into a swamp. "Didn't you say that you would finish me off in one move? What's the number now?" Zhuo Wenchang stood on the blood-colored saber shadow. His cold gaze landed on Zhu Hui below. His indifferent voice contained a trace of mockery. Hearing these words, Zhu Hui's face turned green and white. He roared and punched the bronze bell several times. Each punch carried the power of 1,000 catties. The sound waves of the bell chimes overlapped, forming a terrifying sound wave that filled the entire arena. It was like a tsunami, and the blood-red blade shadow began to shake. "You're quite tenacious." Zhuowen's gaze turned cold. He waved his 7 murders blade again and a depraved aura spread out from the blade. Chaotic mortal world. An aura of depravity filled the air. The mysterious aura of depravity spread out like an invisible cloud. Zhu Hui was affected by the aura of depravity, causing his fist that was hammering at the bronze bell to pause for a moment. He thought of his parents who were shot to death by arrows when he was a child and his little sister who was still crying piteously for food. Zhu Hui knelt down and held his head with both hands as he growled, "No." Soon, Zhu Hui felt that something was wrong. He opened his eyes abruptly. Only then did he realize that what he saw just now was all an illusion. Or rather, it could be said that the depraved will of the chaotic mundane world had used his memories as a medium to create a realistic illusion. "You'll be eliminated." A figure flashed in front of Zhu Hui, and a blade shadow slashed at the bronze bell in front of Zhu Hui. Then, a crisp sound of metal clashing rang out. Zhu Hui, who had just woken up from his stupor, was completely caught off guard. He was sent flying by the force of the blade and smashed outside the arena. Boom. Chapter 1190. The boundless Dharma. Everyone's gazes landed on Zhu Hui, who had landed on the ground. The first-level Emperor Zhu Hui had actually been defeated by the peak Heavenly Venerate Zhuowen. Moreover, he had been defeated in such a straightforward manner. The Great Zhu Institute and Great Kang Institute seats fell into silence. The atmosphere in the Great Zhu Institute was solemn, while the Great Kang Institute was shocked. "He actually won?" Kang Jie mumbled, an excited smile unconsciously appearing from the corners of his mouth. Yao Zhasheng was stunned. As for Kang Yang, who was originally seated on the ground, he abruptly opened his eyes when he heard the strange atmosphere. Soon after, he saw Zhuowen silently standing on the stage. "Oh, where's Zhu Hui?" Kang Yang softly muttered. He followed the crowd's gazes and saw the miserable-looking Zhu Hui on the ground. His pupils shrank to the size of needles and his mouth was slightly agape. The first-level Emperor Zhu Hui had actually been defeated. How did this kid do it? Kang Yang softly muttered. The smile on Zhu Bin's face completely froze as his gaze darkened slightly. With a wave of his sleeve, he brought Zhu Hui, who had fallen below the stage, back to his seat. His right palm pressed against Zhu Bin's back as surging yuan power gushed out and poured into Zhu Hui's body, completely healing his injuries. However, Zhu Hui remained kneeling on the ground with his head on the ground. He did not dare to speak. He was a first-level emperor, yet he had been defeated by an ant-like peak Heavenly Venerate cultivator. This was definitely the greatest humiliation of his life. Hence, he could not face Zhu Bin. Sigh. Don't blame yourself. Zhuowen is indeed not simple. In particular, that final strike was extremely stunning. Your defeat is not unjust. Zhu Bin softly sighed and said in an indifferent voice. However, Zhu Bin's words caused Zhu Hui to clench his fists even tighter. Zhu Bin was undoubtedly implying that he was inferior to the peak Heavenly Venerate Zhuowen. Although he was extremely unwilling in his heart, he could not change the outcome of his defeat. Stomp. A figure walked to Zhu Hui's side. Soon after, an indifferent voice rang out in his ears, "Do not be arrogant in victory, do not be discouraged in defeat." Upon hearing these words, Zhu Hui's body trembled. Soon after, he slowly lifted his head and saw Zhu Chang, whose eyes were as calm as water, looking at him in an indifferent manner. I'm the one who walked into a dead end. Thank you for your advice, Brother Chang. Zhu Hui nodded his head heavily. Soon after, he slowly stood up and walked past Zhu Chang. As he walked to the back of the seats, the dejected look in his eyes gradually disappeared. Instead, they became much clearer and calmer. Looking at Zhu Hui's appearance, Zhu Bin nodded his head. Fortunately, Zhu Chang's words reminded Zhu Hui. Otherwise, the latter might have developed a heart demon because of this. This kid is not simple. How confident are you? Zhu Bin suddenly asked. 100%. As he spoke, Zhu Chang took a step forward and leaped onto the arena like a great rock spreading its wings. His sharp gaze was fixed on Zhuowen. With the Institute of Great Jews Zhu Chang stepping up, Zhuowen's chances of victory should be over. The instant Zhu Chang leaped onto the arena, many people below the stage burst into an uproar. Zhu Chang was not Zhu Hui. He was a second-level martial emperor. Even Kang Yang of the Great Kang Manor had been easily defeated by him, let alone Zhuowen, who was a peak heavenly venerate. Even though Zhuowen had defeated the first-level martial emperor Zhu Hui, there were still many people who were not optimistic about Zhuowen's chances. I wonder if Zhuowen can still create glory in this battle. Cangjie's eyes were bright as he stared at Zhuowen. A peak heavenly venerate defeating a first-level martial emperor. This was already shocking enough. Moreover, he felt that Zhuowen might still have some trump cards. After all, the current Zhuowen looked far too calm. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, the two people on the arena faced each other from afar. Zhu Chang was the first to speak. I never thought that you, who have yet to enter the martial emperor realm, would be able to unleash such terrifying power. You are worthy of being called a monster. However, your journey of victory will now be ended by me. Zhuowen sneered and said, anyone can boast. It's more appropriate for you to say these words after you have defeated me. Zhu Chang's expression froze for a moment. Soon after, the corners of his mouth curled up. Interesting. You are very confident. However, your confidence will soon become a joke. As he spoke, Zhu Chang took a step forward. The pressure from his body swept out like a monstrous tsunami. The atmosphere on the arena became extremely stagnant and terrifying under this pressure. Swoosh. Zhu Chang took one step at a time. When Zhu Chang took his fifth step, the pressure became extremely terrifying. Even Zhuowen felt as if there was a heavy mountain pressing down on his shoulders. His knees slightly bent, and his eyebrows slightly furrowed. After which, Zhu Chang stomped his foot and shot out like an arrow from a bow, arriving in front of Zhuowen in an instant. Boom! Zhu Chang threw out a palm. Yuan power spurted out from his palm. It was as if he had teleported and landed in front of Zhuowen. The surging Yuan power set off terrifying energy ripples in the surroundings. Zhuowen frowned slightly. Zhu Chang was indeed powerful. He slashed out with the 7-kill blade in his right hand and used the destruction of life again. A terrifying blood-red blade shadow tore through the air and slammed heavily on Zhu Chang's right palm. Bang! A soft explosion sounded. Then, the blood-red blade shadow that was advancing courageously froze in mid-air. Soon after, it was completely destroyed by Zhu Chang's terrifying palm. Retreat! Zhuowen hurriedly retreated the instant the blood-colored blade shadow was shattered. However, Zhu Chang did not spare Zhuowen after gaining the upper hand. With a stomp of his foot, he followed closely behind Zhuowen. His right palm was like a maggot that stuck to Zhuowen, wanting to completely crush Zhuowen to death. Damn it! Chaotic mortal world. Looking at Zhu Chang's right palm that was stuck to him, Zhuowen cursed in a low voice. The 7-kill saber in his hand slashed out at a speed that seemed slow but was actually fast. A depraved mortal realm concept gushed out and a red mist spread out. Zhu Chang, who was originally following closely behind, paused the moment he came into contact with the mortal realm concept. He frowned slightly as if he had fallen into some kind of deep thought. Destruction of life. The moment Zhu Chang fell into the mortal world concept, Zhuowen's eyes lit up. He took a step forward and used the destruction of life again. The blood-red blade shadow was like a blood-red mountain that came crashing down with a rumble. When the blood-red blade shadow was a few inches above Ju Chang's head, Ju Chang suddenly opened his eyes. A terrifying light burst out from his eyes. Then, he twisted his waist and flicked his right hand. A bronze sword appeared in his hand. Ding! As he raised his sword, a green sword glow soared into the sky and violently collided with the blood-colored blade shadow. Immediately, an extremely frightening explosion erupted from the two of them. Following which, the blood-colored blade shadow collapsed inch by inch under the bombardment of the green sword glow. No wonder Ju Hui was defeated by this move. I didn't expect you to have a depraved illusion in your chaotic mortal world. After defeating the blood-red blade shadow, Ju Chang glanced at Zhuowen indifferently. Then, he took a step forward and rushed toward Zhuowen. Nirvana of the great sun, immortality and indestructibility. The moment Zhuowen rushed toward him, a golden light burst out from his body and turned into the Buddha body of Zhuowen. Bang! Zhuowen opened his eyes. The blazing golden radiance was like two golden pillars that shot out. Then, he threw a punch. The golden radiance of the punch exploded. It was as if the power of the punch was wrapped in the scorching sun. It was extremely terrifying. Boom! The fist radiance and the sword radiance collided. Then, Ju Chang's pupils shrank as he realized that the sword radiance had been shattered by the punch. Then, Zhuowen threw another punch toward him. Ju Chang took a step forward and slashed out with his bronze sword. Immediately, the bronze sword and the golden fist collided. The energy shockwaves spread out like ripples, causing the entire stage to shake violently. Cracks began to appear on the surface of the stage. Seeing such a terrifying impact, the martial artists below the stage all revealed looks of horror. Many of them even retreated from the aftermath of the collision. What a terrifying power! Boom! Boom! Zhuowen possessed an undying and indestructible body. He threw out punch after punch, each punch containing the force of 1,000 katis. On the other hand, Ju Chang held the bronze sword in his hand, blocking Zhuowen's punches as he hurriedly retreated. His heart was filled with shock. Bang! After another punch, Ju Chang furrowed his brows and retreated a few dozen steps. At the moment he retreated, the sound of something breaking through the air came from behind him. The black-robed Zhuowen slashed at Ju Chang with the 7 slaughter blade in his hand. His target was Ju Chang's back. An ominous feeling rose in Ju Chang's heart. His feet moved, and the bronze sword was placed horizontally on his back. Soon after, the sound of metal clashing rang out. He took a few steps forward, and turned around to see the black-robed Zhuowen, who was wielding the 7 slaughter blade. 2 doppelgangers? Looking at the black-robed Zhuowen in front of him and the Buddha body behind him, Ju Chang's pupils shrank. His heart was in turmoil. The strength of the Buddha body behind him was beyond his expectations. He wondered how much stronger it was compared to the black-robed Zhuowen. Outer body doppelganger? Below the arena, the 7 mansion masters were surprised. They did not expect Zhuowen to have cultivated the secret technique of outer body doppelganger. Although the aura of the outer body Zhuowen was at the peak of the heavenly master realm, the unparalleled physical body had surpassed that of an ordinary emperor realm warrior. It was no wonder that Ju Chang was suppressed by him. No wonder Zhuowen is so confident. It turns out that he has such a trump card. Cangjie smiled. The strength shown by Zhuowen's Buddha body made him feel relieved. Everyone in the Great Kang Mansion's seating area was shocked. Even the wise Kang Dai took a few more glances at Zhuowen with a hint of surprise in her eyes. Dharma is boundless. Zhuowen did not hold back anymore. With a low roar, the Buddha body Zhuowen leaped into the air and clasped his hands together. The light wheel behind his head blazed even more fiercely. Then, the light wheel swept out and turned into a giant wheel that was hundreds of feet long. The surface of the giant wheel was inscribed with countless Sanskrit characters. Solemn Sanskrit chants were recited from it. Golden characters surrounded the surface of the light wheel like tadpoles. Boom! As soon as the light wheel was formed, it fell from the sky like a falling sun. At this moment, it was dazzling and brilliant. Chapter 1191. Dream Cloud Swamp 7-star Setting Sun Sword. Zhu Chang shouted in a low voice. His right hand gripped the bronze sword, while his left hand formed a sword seal. Surging yuan power gushed out. Instantly, a pillar of light gushed out from the tip of the bronze sword. Soon after, the space above the bronze sword directly shattered. 7 stars descended from the crack, surrounding a blazing setting sun. Zhu Chang has used the 7-star setting sun sword? In the Great Zhu Institute seating area, Zhu Bin suddenly stood up. His eyes were filled with a grave expression as he looked at Zhu Chang. Under countless gazes, the 7-star setting sun sword and the boundless Buddhist light wheel heavily smashed together. Extremely terrifying vibrations spread throughout the area. Soon after, a blazing ball of light exploded on the stage. The ball of light pulsed and contracted, making it look extremely bizarre. The stage below the ball of light was completely shattered into countless pieces. The explosion of the ball of light did not last for very long. When the ball of light gradually disappeared, a miserable figure was sent flying out of the stage. Bang! He landed on the ground like a meteor, emitting a dull thud. When everyone's gazes converged on this figure, gasps rang out one after another. This figure was none other than Zhu Chang. Zhu Chang's face was pale, his hair was disheveled, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He looked extremely miserable. Swish, swish, swish. Everyone's gazes shifted from Zhu Chang to Zhuo Wen, who was in the arena. The silent atmosphere was broken in an instant, and an uproar rang out like an avalanche. Although everyone was shocked that Zhuo Wen had defeated Zhu Hui, they could still accept it. However, even Zhu Chang had been defeated. This was a little unbelievable. Zhu Hui was at the first level of the Immortal Emperor realm. Moreover, he had fought with Qin Mu in the past and had expended a great deal of his energy. He didn't even have 1/10 of his original strength left. Being defeated by Zhuo Wen was only a small surprise to the crowd. However, Zhu Chang was at the second level of the Immortal Emperor realm and he was at the peak of the Heavenly Venerable realm. Yet, Zhuo Wen was able to defeat Zhu Chang. On the Great Kang Manor's seating area, everyone stood up. Their gazes were fixed on Zhuo Wen, who was on the stage. Their eyes were filled with respect. They knew that in this hero competition, their Great Kang Manor had obtained the final victory, and the main reason for this victory was because of Zhuo Wen, who was standing on the stage. Good, good, good. Zhuo Wen, you are really good. Cangjie suddenly stood up, his face full of excitement. Behind him, Kang Dai's beautiful eyes were also filled with shock. She stared at Zhuo Wen, but her heart was in a mess. Yarou Zhaxing and Kang Yang stood stiffly on the spot like statues. They didn't know what to do. On the stage, Zhuo Wen waved his right hand. Zhuo Wen's Buddha body took a step forward and merged with Zhuo Wen's body. His eyes, which were filled with radiance, landed on Cangjie. He said, "Manor Lord, I believe the outcome is already clear." Zhuo Wen's voice wasn't loud, but it sounded like a great bell. It was extremely clear and resonant. Everyone's gaze landed on Cangjie. Cangjie slowly stood up in front of everyone's gazes. His eyes were full of smiles as he said in a clear voice, "The final victor of this hero competition is Zhuo Wen of my Great Kang Manor." After saying this, Cangjie's face was filled with pride. It was definitely a pleasant surprise for him that his Great Kang Manor had defeated the Great Zhu Institute. On the Great Zhu Institute seating area, Zhu Bin's mouth was agape. In the end, he didn't say a word. The outcome of Zhuo Wen and Zhu Chang's match was already very clear. Zhu Chang had suffered a crushing defeat, and there was nothing he could say to change the fact that Zhu Chang had lost. "Why? You're clearly only a peak heavenly venerate. How can you display such powerful battle strength?" Zhu Chang clutched his chest as he stared at Zhuo Wen on the stage and roared in a low voice. Zhuo Wen looked down at Zhu Chang below the stage and slowly said, "Why can't a peak heavenly venerate possess the battle strength of a martial emperor?" Zhuo Wen wasn't surprised that he had defeated Zhu Chang. With his Buddha body, Zhuo Wen's physical body had reached an undying and indestructible level. His battle strength was completely comparable to a third-level martial emperor. Even a fourth-level martial emperor wouldn't be able to kill the undying Buddha body Zhuo Wen so easily. Therefore, Zhu Chang's defeat was inevitable against the Buddha body Zhuo Wen. After hearing Zhuowen's words, Zhu Chang abruptly took a few steps back. There was a trace of disappointment in his eyes. He had actually been defeated by Zhuowen. His outcome was almost exactly the same as Zhu Hui's. Haha. Mansion Master Cungjie, your Great Kang Mansion is really amazing. It's really amazing to have such a monstrous genius. A peak heavenly venerate could actually defeat Zhu Chang. If this lad's cultivation advances to the Emperor realm, his battle strength will probably be even more terrifying. I really didn't expect Cungjie to have such a trump card. It seems like the top expert in your Great Kang Mansion should be Zhuowen. After the Great Kang Mansion's victory was announced, the mansion masters of the Great Frame Mansion, the Great Tang Mansion, the Great Han Mansion, and the Great Chu Mansion who had already been eliminated came forward with smiles on their faces. They congratulated Cungjie and their eyes were filled with enthusiasm. At the same time, their gazes towards Zhuowen were filled with kindness and passion. After Zhuowen consecutively defeated Zhu Hui and Zhu Chang, everyone knew just how terrifying the potential of this seemingly inconspicuous youth before them would be. Once this lad became a martial emperor, his battle strength would very likely be earth-shattering. Therefore, it was still beneficial for these weaker mansion masters to establish a good relationship with a junior with such terrifying potential. In stark contrast to these enthusiastic headmasters, the headmaster of the Great Zhu Institute, Zhu Bin, as well as the other members of the Great Zhu Institute, had advanced to the final round at the same time. They had originally believed that the final victory of this hero gathering would belong to none other than their Great Zhu Institute. However, Zhuowen of the Great Kang Institute had suddenly emerged as a new force to be reckoned with, defeating both Zhu Hui and Zhu Chang consecutively, forcefully snatching away the victory that originally belonged to their Great Zhu Institute. Behind the Great Kang Mansion's seating area, Kang Yang's expression was also rather ugly. He was originally the #1 genius of the Great Kang Mansion and was revered by countless people. However, he had now been defeated by Zhu Chang, while Zhu Chang had been defeated by Zhuowen, whom he had previously not paid much attention to. In an instant, the glory that he had previously enjoyed had completely collapsed. Even the title of the #1 genius of the Great Kang Mansion had been crowned by Zhuowen. Haha. Cungjie laughed heartily. His eyes were filled with delight. This time, Zhuowen had truly helped him greatly. Therefore, his gaze towards Zhuowen had become increasingly pleasing to the eye. Everyone. Since my Great Kang Mansion is the victor of this hero gathering, shouldn't everyone fulfill their promise and hand over the incomplete map of the Great Demon Sect ruins? Cungjie slowly floated in the air as his loud and clear voice spread to the ears of the crowd below. As soon as his words came out, everyone's gaze turned sluggish. For a moment, the surrounding atmosphere became somewhat dignified. The faces of the other mansion masters, who were originally filled with enthusiasm, stiffened. Everyone, please don't forget the original intention of holding this hero gathering. After all, everyone has signed an agreement. As for the punishment for violating the agreement, everyone should know about it, right? Cungjie's face suddenly turned cold as he said indifferently. Of course not. However, Cungjie, after you have gathered the incomplete map, you have to announce the complete map's content. This way, we will know the location of the Great Demon Sect ruins, Zhu Bin suddenly said. Cungjie nodded and said, of course. After all of you are the almighty of your respective mansion. If I were to swallow the map of the Great Demon Sect ruins alone, wouldn't I be seeking my own death? Hearing this, the other mansion masters were relieved. Then, Zhu Bin waved his sleeves in an extremely straightforward manner and a scroll flew towards Cungjie. With Zhu Bin's good start, the other mansion masters also nodded and threw their scrolls to Cungjie. Cungjie's heart couldn't help but beat wildly when he received 6 scrolls in one go. He flicked his right hand and took out the 7th scroll. Suddenly, the 7 scrolls combined together and burst out an extremely turbulent light. The moment the 7 scrolls combined, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. This was because he found that the 8th map fragment, which was lying quietly in the spirit ring, had begun to stir. However, Zhuowen calmly suppressed the commotion caused by the 8th map fragment. He didn't want to take out the 8th map fragment so early. After all, the 7 mansion masters were present. If they knew that there was another map fragment with him, they would definitely force him to hand it over. At that time, Zhuowen wouldn't get any benefits at all. The light gradually faded and the 7 scrolls disappeared. What replaced them was a slightly tattered yellowish map. On the map, there were outlines of mountain ranges and regions. Cangjie waved his right hand and took the yellowish map in his hand. The other 6 mansion masters rushed over and came to Cangjie's side. Everyone, please take a look at the location of the marks on this map for reference. Cangjie was quite generous. With a wave of his right hand, the map unfolded above him and showed it to the other 6 mansion masters. This is the dreamy cloud swampland in the extreme north. Ju Bin suddenly pointed at an area with a vast body of water on the map and murmured in a low voice. It's very likely. The mark of the Great Demon Sect ruins is near the dreamy cloud swampland. However, this map doesn't seem to be complete. There are many places that haven't been marked, and the specific location of the Great Demon Sect hasn't been marked. Could it be that there are other map fragments that we haven't found? Cangjie replied with a slight frown. Yes. This map is still incomplete. I'm afraid that it's still missing some map fragments. The Great Qin Mansion's Qin Xin echoed. When they realized that the map wasn't complete, the 7 mansion masters all frowned. The 7 of them didn't expect that 7 map fragments were unable to form a complete map of the Great Demon Sect ruins. However, we now know that the Great Demon Sect ruins is definitely in the Dreamy Cloud Swampland. It seems that we can only enter the Dreamy Cloud Swampland to search for the Great Demon Sect ruins. My Great Jew Institute will take our leave first. Chapter 1192. Cangjie. The people from the 6 great mansions quickly left. Cangjie waved his right hand and put the map of the ruins of the Great Demon Sect into his sleeve. He then sat down on his seat. Cangjie was a little disappointed that the map was not complete. However, it was fortunate that he had a large portion of the map. Once he found the entrance to the Great Demon Sect ruins, he would definitely have an advantage over the others by relying on the map. Zhuowen. This time, it was all thanks to you that my great Kang Manor was able to obtain the final victory. Whatever reward you want, feel free to tell me. Although the map was still incomplete, Cangjie's mood was still quite good. At this moment, his eyes fell on Zhuowen and his voice was quite gentle. Zhuowen shook his head and transmitted his voice, there is no need for a reward. I only hope that Mansion Master Cangjie can give me a copy of the map in your hand. That will be enough. Hearing this, Cangjie narrowed his eyes and deeply looked at Zhuowen. He softly smiled and said, "Little fellow, you are quite ambitious. However, this time, most of the credit belongs to you. Therefore, I can agree to this request of yours." Seeing that Cangjie had agreed, Zhuowen smiled. This was because he had the 8th map fragment with him. Together with Cangjie's first 7 maps, he might be able to gather all of the map fragments. At that time, Zhuowen might be like a fish in water in the Great Demon Sect ruins. Although the 2 of them were transmitting their voice to each other, Cangjie's beautiful eyes were filled with wisdom as she stared at Zhuowen. The corner of her mouth revealed a sweet smile. Let's return to the Great Kang Manor first. I will give you the map fragment later. After speaking, Cangjie waved his sleeve and planned to bring Zhuowen back to the Great Kang Manor. However, Cangjie suddenly came in front of Cangjie and said in a sweet voice, "Father, bring me back too." Cangjie smiled bitterly as he looked at Kang Soro, whose lips were curled up. He nodded his head and waved his sleeve. A wave of yuan power gushed out and wrapped Kang Soro and Zhuowen into it. The 3 of them then disappeared from everyone's sight. Kang Yang's face was extremely ugly. Ever since Zhuowen helped the Great Kang Mansion to win, Cangjie had never looked at him. He knew that Cangjie was disappointed in him. Zhuowen. Kang Yang gritted his teeth as he spoke. With a wave of his sleeve, he left the place. In the reception hall of Dartsong Mansion, Cangjie landed in the hall with Zhuowen and Kang Soro. Cangjie did not avoid Kang Soro and took out the map of the Great Demon Sect ruins from his sleeve. He pointed with his right hand and engraved an identical map and handed it to Zhuowen. "Zhuowen, you have helped me greatly this time. Take this map. If you can successfully find the Great Demon Sect ruins this time, you can enter it and rely on this map. You will definitely have the advantage over others. Tsungjie said with a faint smile. Thank you, Mansion Master. Zhuowen said in a manner that was neither servile nor overbearing. Tsungjie nodded his head and his eyes flickered. He smiled and said, Zhuowen, I see that you don't belong to any sect. Why don't you join my Great Kang Mansion? My Great Kang Mansion will definitely help you to break through to the Emperor Realm. Zhuowen was stunned. His eyes revealed a hint of pondering as he said, Mansion Master, Zhuowen is flattered that you can personally invite me to join your Great Kang Mansion. However, I already have a master. If I were to join another force now, I'm afraid that it would be inappropriate. Tsungjie was stunned. He immediately thought that with Zhuowen's monstrous talent, it was impossible for him to be self-taught. Then, there was only one possibility. The master who taught Zhuowen was definitely an extremely terrifying existence. That was why he was able to cultivate Zhuowen into such a monstrous and terrifying genius. May I ask, Zhuowen, who is your master? Tsungjie asked unwillingly. He really couldn't bear to miss out on a genius like Zhuowen. Zhuowen shook his head and said rather appropriately, My master is a reclusive person. He rarely walks around outside. Even if I were to tell you, Mansion Master probably wouldn't know him. It's fine if I don't tell you. Hearing this, Tsungjie didn't ask too much. Zhuowen's words were already very obvious. He wasn't willing to reveal his master's name and origin. In that case, I won't force you. However, how about you be my Great Kang Mansion's guest elder? This guest elder is just a title. There's no obligation for you to do anything. What do you think? Tsungjie still didn't give up and asked. Since Mansion Master is so kind, if Zhuowen still refuses, it would be a bit unreasonable. Zhuowen will accept the guest elder position. After pondering for a while, Zhuowen agreed to become the guest elder of the Great Kang Mansion. Hearing Zhuowen agree, Tsungjie let out a sigh of relief and laughed out loud. He waved his sleeve and took out a black token. He handed it to Zhuowen and said, This is the identity token of the guest elder of the Great Kang Mansion. Keep it well. With this identity, you can move unimpeded in the Great Kang Mansion. No one will dare to stop you. After receiving the token, Zhuowen said politely, Thank you, Mansion Master Tsungjie. All right. I think you haven't visited my Great Kang Mansion yet. You can take a good look around here. In a few days, I plan to bring the people of the Great Kang Mansion to the Dreamy Cloud Swampland. At that time, you can come with me. After saying that, Tsungjie left the hall. His footsteps were slightly hurried. It was obvious that he couldn't wait to study the map of the Supreme Demon Sect ruins in his hands. After Tsungjie left, Zhuowen also planned to leave, but was stopped by Kangjie. Is there anything else, Miss Kangjie? Zhuowen stopped and stared at Kangjie in front of him. Kangjie's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of craftiness as she said with a smile, Zhuowen, the reward you want this time is just a map of the Supreme Demon Sect ruins. Do you have another purpose? Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and said coldly, Miss Kangjie is thinking too much. I am just curious about the Supreme Demon Sect ruins. Moreover, with the map, entering the Supreme Demon Sect ruins will benefit me a lot. That's all. Kangjie laughed and said, Zhuowen, are you still planning to be secretive? You should have the 8th piece of the map on you, right? Zhuowen's pupils shrank into needles. He turned his head and stared at Kangjie. He said coldly, Miss Kangjie, what are you talking about? I don't know anything about it. You don't have to be secretive in front of me. I already know that you have the 8th piece of the map. Do you still remember Zhong Shui and Jifang? Kangjie shook her head. Zhong Shui and Jifang? It seems that you already knew that I had the map fragment. Why didn't you tell Palace Master Kangjie? Zhuowen muttered softly as he stared at Kangjie. His voice became colder and more indifferent. Kangjie pouted and snorted, what's the point of telling him? If I told him, he would only take the map fragment from you and not take me to the Supreme Demon Sect ruins. You want to go to the Supreme Demon Sect ruins? Zhuowen frowned. Kang Jie's cultivation wasn't high. She was only in the supreme realm. In Zhuowen's opinion, with such a cultivation, entering the dreamy cloud swampland was equivalent to courting death. The dreamy cloud swampland was considered an extremely dangerous place in the entire panicked world. It was said that dragons and snakes roamed freely and ferocious beasts were everywhere. Moreover, it was surrounded by dense clouds and mist all year round. In the dreamy cloud swampland, even an Emperor Realm martial artist would suffer if they weren't careful. As for those below the Emperor Realm, there was a high chance that they would die in the dreamy cloud swampland. Therefore, when Kang Jie proposed to go to the dreamy cloud swampland, Zhuowen was a little surprised. In his opinion, wasn't this courting death? Yes. It's too boring to be cooped up in the great Kang mansion all day. I heard that there are many rare treasures in the Supreme Demon Sect. Perhaps if I enter, I will be able to obtain a great opportunity and become a peerless expert. Who knows, my reputation might shock the entire panicked world. As Kang Jie spoke, her beautiful eyes were filled with yearning. Looking at Kang Jie's expression, Zhuowen's gaze was somewhat helpless. He coldly said, "Your cultivation is too low. Entering the dreamy cloud swampland is simply courting death. I advise you to give up on this idea. Don't I still have you? You are so strong that even Zhu Chang was defeated by you. If you take me to the dreamy cloud swampland, then my life will have another layer of protection." Kang Jie grinned and said to Zhuowen, "You want me to protect you?" Zhuowen's expression suddenly turned cold. Kang Jie pouted and tenderly snorted, "There are many people who want to protect this young lady. Why are you still unwilling? I'm not used to dragging a burden into a dangerous place like the dreamy cloud swampland. You will implicate me." Zhuowen bluntly refused. "You." Kang Jie stamped her foot. She was so angry that her tender body trembled. Zhuowen didn't pay any attention to Kang Jie. He took a step forward, wanting to leave the hall directly. However, when he took a few steps, Kang Jie's tender snort sounded in his ears. "If you don't take me there, I will reveal the fact that you have the 8th piece of the map. At that time, the 7 mansion masters of the panicked world will know. Let's see what you will do then." Zhuowen's footsteps paused. He turned his head, and a trace of killing intent flashed in his eyes. He stared at Kang Jie and said, "Are you threatening me?" Looking at the killing intent in Zhuowen's eyes, Kang Jie's heart trembled. However, she still forced herself to remain calm and said, "It's not a threat. I just want to cooperate with you. As long as you take me to the dreamy cloud swampland's great demon sect ruins and take care of my safety, then I won't reveal that you have the 8th piece of the map. Also, if you want to kill me, I think you should give up on that idea. This is the great Kang mansion. If I die, my father will immediately sense it. At that time, you won't be able to escape the fate of death." Kang Jie added. Zhuowen quietly stared at Kang Jie. After about 10 breaths, he finally snorted and said, "You win. This time, I will take you to the dreamy cloud swampland. However, you have to listen to my arrangements." Hee hee. "Of course, I will listen to you." Chapter 1193. Arriving at the Dreamcloud swampland when Kang Dai walked out of the mansion with Zhuowen in her arms, this scene was immediately witnessed by many people in the Great Kang mansion. Many people began to whisper among themselves, discussing the relationship between Zhuowen and Kang Dai. Of course, most people were extremely optimistic about the relationship between Zhuowen and Kang Dai. Kang Dai was the daughter of the Great Kang mansion's master, Kang Jie, and was a golden child. On the other hand, Zhuowen was extremely talented and had defeated Zhu Hui and Zhu Chang of the Great Zhu Mansion at the peak Heavenly Venerate level, causing his name to shake the entire Great Kang Mansion. This pair could be said to be a match made in heaven and most people supported them. However, Kang Yang, who was passing by, seemed to have been struck by lightning as his expression turned extremely dark. However, he did not step forward. Instead, his gaze landed on Zhuowen as hatred surged in his eyes. However, he did not dare to face Zhuowen directly. The scene of Zhu Chang's miserable defeat was still vivid in his mind. This Zhuowen was too terrifying and he did not dare to challenge him. At this moment, Zhuoan and Kang Dai had walked out of the mansion and arrived at a rather remote alley. Soon after, Zhuoan coldly said, "Can you let go now?" Kang Yang should have seen that scene. "I believe that he will not overestimate himself and bother you in the future." Kang Dai's face was full of smiles and she did not let go. Instead, she softly laughed and said, "So you have noticed. However, don't you feel that it is very comfortable to be hugged by me like this?" As she spoke, Kang Dai's delicate body gently approached Zhuoan. Her ample bosom actually touched Zhuoan's arm, causing Zhuoan's eyebrows to furrow slightly. Soon after, the fragrance of orchids lingered at the tip of his nose. Kang Dai's pure face was only a few inches away from him. As her warm breath brushed past Zhuoan's ear, it actually caused him to feel intoxicated. However, Zhuoan quickly regained his senses. Yuan power flowed out from his right hand as a gust of wind swept out and pushed Kang Dai away. Soon after, he coldly stared at Kang Dai and said, "What is the meaning of this?" Kang Dai took a few steps back, but he was not angry. He chuckled and said, "Nothing. I think you're amazing. Can't I like you?" Zhuoan's eyes narrowed as he sneered, "I can't tell from your eyes that you like me at all. Don't worry. I'll bring you to Dream Cloud Swarmland this time, so I naturally won't go back on my word. There's no need to use such a despicable method to make me agree to your request." Hearing this, Kang Dai raised her eyebrows and snorted, "How can you do this? I'm a girl, why are you so cold when I confess to you? It doesn't matter if I'm cold or not. This is my communication jade talisman. When I go to the Dreamy Cloud Swarmland, I'll naturally call you." Zhuoan shook his head. With a flip of his right hand, he passed a jade talisman to Kang Dai. The latter naturally took it without any trace of politeness and said with a smile, "Take your time to study the map. However, you must remember that when we depart to the Dreamy Cloud Swarmland, you absolutely cannot go with my father. Otherwise, I will have no chance to leave." Zhuoan nodded and said, "Don't worry, I know this." As he spoke, Zhuoan took a step forward and transformed into a bolt of black lightning, disappearing from the alley. Kang Jie stomped her foot and snorted, "That despicable fellow, he really doesn't understand romance." 6 days later, Kang Jie led the elite warriors of the Great Kang Mansion and left the Great Kang Mansion region in a grandiose manner. They rushed towards the Dreamy Cloud Swarmland in the northern part of the Great Kang world. Not only the Great Kang Mansion, but the other 6 mansions were also fully prepared. They brought their elite warriors and rushed towards the Dreamy Cloud Swarmland. When Kang Jie set off for the Dreamy Cloud Swarmland, he naturally asked Zhuoan if he planned to go. Because of Kang Dai, Zhuoan naturally did not agree. Although Kang Jie was a little surprised by Zhuoan's refusal, he did not care very much. The Dreamy Cloud Swarmland was a famous dangerous place in the Great Kang world. Even if Zhuoan did not know, he could find the specific location of the Dreamy Cloud Swarmland by relying on the map. When the 7 mansion masters brought their elite warriors to the Dreamy Cloud Swarmland, the other warriors of the 7 mansions were also in an uproar. The rumor that the ruins of the extreme demon sect might appear in the Dreamy Cloud Swarmland had spread throughout the 7 mansions. Many warriors knew about this news. For a moment, the warriors of the 7 mansions went crazy. The reputation of the extreme demon sect in the Great Kang world was too great. This was a powerful sect that suppressed the 7 mansions in one fell swoop. The founder of the extreme demon sect, the Extreme Demon Lord, was the only terrifying existence in the Great Kang world who had advanced to the high-level martial emperor realm. One could imagine how deep the heritage of the extreme demon sect was. It was enough to cause countless warriors to go crazy. Therefore, the warriors of the 7 mansions followed the teams of their respective mansions' mansion masters to the Dreamy Cloud Swarmland. Their purpose was to get a share of the loot. Although most of the warriors knew that with the existence of the 7 mansions, they were afraid that they would not be able to compete with those 7 existences. However, there must be a lot of things in the ruins of the extreme demon sect. It was impossible for the 7 mansions to seize all of them. Therefore, the remaining things that the 7 mansions did not fancy were precious treasures for ordinary warriors. Therefore, this was also the reason why most of the warriors rushed to the extreme demon sect. On the 7th day, 2 figures set off from the Great Kang mansion and rushed towards the extreme north. These 2 figures were a man and a woman. Although the man's appearance was not handsome, it was quite pleasing to the eye. The woman's complexion was elegant and charming, lovely and moving. These 2 people were naturally Zhuowen and Kang Jie. As Kang Jie had set off on the 6th day, in order to avoid the Great Kang Mansion's team, the 2 of them chose to set off on the 7th day. This time, when you enter the dreamy cloud swampland, listen to everything I do. Otherwise, I will not care about you. Zhuowen coldly said to Kang Jie. Kang Jie pouted her lips and tenderly snorted, "Don't worry, I will listen to everything you say. After all, my strength is not strong. Only you can protect me." The dreamy cloud swampland was quite far from the Great Kang Mansion. Even if Zhuowen's speed was not slow, it still took him 3 days to reach the periphery of the dreamy cloud swampland. A trace of shock appeared in Zhuowen's eyes as he gazed at the enormous lake that was shrouded by an enormous amount of mist. The dream cloud swampland was extremely vast, spanning a few million kilometers. It was practically impossible to see the end of it with a single glance. It was a vast expanse of mist, and within the misty mist, Zhuowen was faintly able to see the sparkling surface of the lake behind the mist. Zhuowen, after entering the dreamy cloud swampland, you have to be careful. In the dreamy cloud swampland, dragons, snakes and ferocious beasts are everywhere. Moreover, there is no lack of Emperor Realm living beings. Even if some powerful Emperor Realm cultivators enter the dreamy cloud swampland, if they are not careful, there is a possibility of them dying. Kang Jie said solemnly. I naturally know this. Before coming, I already knew a little about the dreamy cloud swampland. Zhuowen nodded his head in agreement. Swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. In the sky behind the 2 of them, figures rushed over. These figures did not pay attention to Zhuowen and Kang Jie who were outside. Instead, they directly rushed into the dreamy cloud swampland. Their eyes were all blazing with passion. Clearly, these martial artists basically came for the extreme devil sect's ruins. Let's go in too, Zhuowen said. With a wave of his sleeve, he directly took out the divine sun cauldron. However, the divine sun cauldron was not for him, but for Kang Jie beside him. After all, the divine sun cauldron was only a monarch realm spiritual treasure. For the current Zhuowen, it was already not very practical. Boom! Waves of sun fire surrounded Kang Jie's body, and the divine sun cauldron floated above Kang Jie's head under Zhuowen's control. Let's go. After preparing the defensive measures, Zhuowen said and stepped into the clouds with the Kang saucer. The moment he entered the clouds, Zhuowen only felt a wave of moisture hitting his face, and his cheeks felt cold. Then, he discovered that under the clouds, the huge lake had become extremely clear. The surface of the dreamy cloud swampland was like a mirror, extremely clear. Not only could it reflect a person's figure, it could even see through a range of dozens of meters below. However, the dreamy cloud swampland was extremely deep. Even if it was clear, it was impossible to see the bottom of the lake. As soon as he entered the dreamy cloud swampland, the mental energy in Zhuowen's Niwen Palace was like thousands of tentacles that spread out in all directions, constantly on alert for possible dangers. Zhuowen, you should have seen the complete map, right? Then, you should know the specific location of the Great Devil Sect ruins, right? Kang Jie suddenly asked in the sunfire. Zhuowen nodded and said in a deep voice, I do know, but the location of the Great Devil Sect ruins is actually in the center of the dreamy cloud swampland. I'm afraid that we will only know the details after we reach the center of the dreamy cloud swampland. What? It's actually in the center of the dreamy cloud swampland? Kang Jie said with a pale face. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Zhuowen asked doubtfully. Kang Jie nodded fiercely and said, the dreamy cloud swampland is a famous dangerous place in the panicked world. The closer to the center of the dreamy cloud swampland, the more dangerous it is. The probability of encountering an immortal realm ferocious beast is much higher than the periphery. Moreover, the number of immortal realm ferocious beasts is probably not small. So that's how it is. Hearing this, Zhuowen also understood why Kang Jie lost his composure. If you are afraid, I can send you out of the dreamy cloud swampland now. This place is not suitable for you, Zhuowen said indifferently. Hearing this, Kang Jie stomped his feet and snorted. Who said I am afraid? You can go ahead. My life is your responsibility anyway, you can't trick me. Of course. Zhuowen replied absent-mindedly. He was thinking about how to enter the place marked on the map. There were only 8 maps of the Great Devil Sect ruins. After Zhuowen placed the 8th map fragment, the map was completely complete. He also knew the location of the Great Devil Sect ruins. However, the place was somewhat hidden, so Zhuowen frowned and was worried. Boom! Just as Zhuowen was lost in thought, the sound of water splashing rang out. Then, 100-feet-long anaconda burst out from the bottom of the dreamy cloud swampland. Like an arrow leaving the bow, it rushed towards Kang Jie, who was wrapped in the fire of the sun. You are courting death. Zhuowen was awakened by the sound of water splashing. Seeing the anaconda rushing towards him, he snorted coldly and stepped out. His right hand was deep in the void. Surging Buddhist power gushed out, forming a golden Buddha palm in the void and pinching the anaconda. Poochie. Chapter 1194. 9 Extinction. The water python wasn't very strong and was roughly at the initial heavenly sovereign stage. Thus, it wasn't a threat to Zhuowen. However, Kang Dai would be in danger if he were to face the water python. Swoosh! Just as Zhuowen was about to speak, an air-rending sound erupted from behind him. The instant the air-rending sound rang out, a cold glint was reflected in Zhuowen's eyes like moonlight. It actually gave him a cold feeling. An ominous feeling lingered around Zhuowen like dark clouds, causing all the hair on his body to stand on end. Subsequently, the cold glint's speed reached the extreme as it swept towards Zhuowen's chest. This attack was too fast, so fast that even Zhuowen had not expected it. At this critical moment, Zhuowen furiously roared. His feet stomped on the air, causing the vital points on his body to shift by a few inches. Soon after, the cold glint pierced through Zhuowen's shoulder blade, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Swoosh! A soft sound of surprise rang out from behind Zhuowen. Subsequently, the owner of the cold glint actually intended to retreat when he saw that his attack had missed. Unfortunately, Zhuowen would not let him have his way. Running after a sneak attack. It won't be that easy. Zhuowen coldly snorted. The Berserk Massacre aura on his body came crashing down. 8 blood seas surged out like 8 blood pythons, sweeping towards the retreating assassin in an attempt to intercept him. The assassin narrowed his eyes. He was extremely calm as he swung his right hand. The 9-inch short sword in his hand cut through the air, creating a cold glint. Immediately, the 8 blood seas that were rushing over were shattered with a piercing sound. Sword fire ultimacy. Seeing that the massacre aura was unable to do anything to the assassin, Zhuowen's eyes were incomparably cold. His right hand tapped on his forehead. Instantly, a terrifying mental energy swept out from his Niwen palace. At the same time, the ultimate sword array in his spirit ring also surged out along with the mental energy, transforming into terrifying cold glints. Boom! The sword array gushed out and turned into a sea of fire in the sky. It filled the entire sky as if it was burning the entire sky. The assassin was trapped by the sword fire ultimacy. Spiritual power? The assassin clearly did not expect Zhuowen to be a 6th-grade arcana master. Caught off guard, he was enveloped by the sword fire mystery. Within the fire of the sun, Kang Dai also looked at Zhuowen in astonishment. She didn't expect that Zhuowen's spiritual energy would be so powerful even though his martial Dao strength was already so terrifying. She finally realized how terrifying Zhuowen's talent was. The 9th absolute of the 10 Extremes sect. Stepping on the sea of fire, Zhuowen looked down at the figure surrounded by the sea of fire. He saw that this person was also wearing a ghost mask, which was exactly the same as the 10th extremity that he had killed. The only difference was that there was the number 9 on the mask. Needless to say, this person should be Juju of the 10 Extremities sect. Juju's cultivation was at the peak of the Heavenly Master realm, but the strength that he displayed was far more powerful than ordinary peak heavenly masters. Especially the assassination just now, it was extremely perfect. If it wasn't for Zhuowen's extremely sharp senses, he might have been hit. Juju looked up at Zhuowen and said indifferently, "You killed the 10th extremity, didn't you? Looks like the 10 Extremities sect is quite well informed." "That's right, I did kill the 10th extremity." "So, you're here to avenge him?" Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, "I don't know the 10th extremity, nor do I have any relationship with him. I came to assassinate you on the orders of Lord Yiju. He said that you must die, so I'm here." Juju seemed very calm, and his voice was hoarse and magnetic. Zhuowen was a little surprised by Juju's calmness and asked, "You can still be so calm in such an adverse situation? Are you not afraid of death?" Juju smiled and said, "I came here with the determination to die." "You're Zhuowen. You've shown extraordinary talent in the hero competition. Even Zhu Hui and Zhu Chang, who are both at the first layer of the Great Emperor Realm, were defeated by you. Although I've assassinated Great Emperor Realm cultivators before, I've only assassinated Great Emperor Realm cultivators like Zhu Hui. As for Zhu Chang, who's at the second layer of the Great Emperor Realm, my failure rate is 80%. You were able to defeat Zhu Chang, so my chances of failing to assassinate you are almost 99%. Thus, I knew that I would definitely die in this assassination attempt. Even though I used the most perfect assassination technique I've ever used in my life, it still only left you with some superficial wounds. We are both peak Empireans, but the difference between us is truly great. I admit defeat and die in peace." After saying that, Juju bent his right hand and the short sword in his hand pierced into his chest. Then, a violent energy exploded and Juju exploded into a cloud of blood mist. Zhuowen could not stop it in time. What a clean and efficient method. Looking at Juju, who had exploded into a cloud of blood mist, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Juju was not simple. He was a peak heavenly master and had assassinated a first-level Great Emperor Realm cultivator before. He could be considered a genius. But now, under Yiju's orders, he did not hesitate to carry it out. After failing, he did not hesitate to self-destruct. This really surprised Zhuowen. The 10 Extremes sect is not simple. Zhuowen frowned. He was a little afraid of the 10 Extremes sect. If the 10 Extremes and 9 Extremes sect were so powerful, wouldn't the 8 Extremes sect be even more terrifying? The 10 Extremes sect is indeed not simple. Moreover, it's an extremely mysterious sect. With its current development, it's actually vaguely resembling the Lord of the Extreme Demon back then. If the 10 Extremes sect can produce someone who's comparable to the Lord of the Extreme Demon back then, the world might belong to the 10 Extremes sect. Kang Dai came to Zhuowen's side and said in agreement. "And from the looks of it, the 10 Extremes sect has their eyes on you. You have to be careful." Kang Jie suddenly smiled. "Since the 10 Extremes sect has their eyes on me, aren't you afraid?" Zhuowen said with a half-smile. Kang Jie pouted and said with a smile, "Don't I have you? You are so powerful. It won't be easy for the 10 Extremes sect to kill you. I am still quite safe by your side. Let's continue forward." Zhuowen ignored Kang Dai's words. After coldly throwing down these words, he continued to rush forward. Kang Dai stomped his feet and could only follow behind Zhuowen. There were quite a lot of cultivators in the periphery of the dreamy cloud swampland. As the two of them moved forward, they could see many cultivators searching for something. The goal of these cultivators should be the same as theirs, to search for the Great Demon Sect's ruins. However, as the two of them went deeper into the swampland, the number of cultivators decreased greatly. After all, the deeper one went into the dreamy cloud swampland, the more dangerous it was. Cultivators who were not strong naturally did not have the courage to go deep into the dreamy cloud swampland. Along the way, Zhuowen and Kang Jie were attacked by many fierce beasts that broke out of the water. However, with Zhuowen's current strength, these fierce beasts were unable to do anything to him. Even some of the fierce beasts that were at the first level of the Emperor Realm fell under Zhuowen's attacks. Therefore, the two of them were quite unimpeded. I remember that in the map, there should be a medium-sized island in the center of the dreamy cloud swampland. The great demon sect's ruins should be on that island. Now that we have arrived at the center, why are there no signs of the island? Standing in the void, Zhuowen looked down at the dreamy cloud swampland below and slightly frowned. At this moment, they were already in the center of the dreamy cloud swampland. However, other than a misty body of water, there were no signs of land. Zhuowen began to doubt whether the great demon sect's map was correct. Take out the complete map. Maybe there will be some clues. Kang Jie suddenly interrupted. Zhuowen nodded. Since he didn't have any clues, he might as well give it a try according to what Kang Jie said. The dim yellow map fell into Zhuowen's hands. This map was the most complete map of the great demon sect's ruins. It was even more complete than the map in Kang Jie's hands. Hey! This map is changing. Could it be that the mist around the dreamy cloud swampland is causing the map to change? The moment he took out the map, Zhuowen discovered that the contents of the map in his hands had actually started to change. Some of the original markings gradually faded away and new and different contents began to appear under the influence of the mist. In the end, it turned into a completely different map. With the help of the mist of the dreamy cloud swampland and this complete map, it was able to produce such a change. It seems that the sect leader of the great demon sect really put in a lot of effort. Kang Jie was also startled and immediately sighed. Could it be that you knew that this map would have such a change? Zhuowen turned his head and suddenly asked Kang Jie. Kang Jie's beautiful eyes flickered and said with a smile, "How is that possible? I just suddenly thought of it, so I asked you to take it out and have a look. Who knew that such a scene would happen? Is that so?" Zhuowen took a deep look at Kang Jie. In fact, when Kang Jie insisted on following him to the dreamy cloud swampland, he felt that it was a bit strange. Now, Kang Jie's seemingly casual advice actually led to the real map of the great demon sect. This made Zhuowen feel even more strange towards Kang Jie. It's just a coincidence. Take a look at this new map first. You should be able to find the great demon sect's ruins, Kang Jie said with a smile. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded and his gaze fell on the new map. Although Kang Jie was quite suspicious, her cultivation was not high. At this time, in Zhuowen's eyes, she was equivalent to an ant. Zhuowen did not believe that she could play any tricks. It turns out that in this body of water, there is an illusion that obscures the line of sight. After unfolding the map, Zhuowen looked at it a few times and his eyes revealed a look of understanding. Then, according to the method in the map, Zhuowen stepped out and came to the center of the dreamy cloud swampland. A crack appeared between his eyebrows and a golden Buddha's eye appeared. The Buddha's eye had the effect of breaking through 10,000 techniques. Although Zhuowen's strength was low and he could not use its full power, it was still possible to see through this illusion array with the help of the Buddha's eye. The eye of the array is there. Chapter 1195. Xian Bing says bang bang bang. Zhuo Wen threw out 7 consecutive punches, each of which contained the power of 1,000 catties. Instantly, a terrifying whirlpool emerged from the dream cloud swampland below. The whirlpool was like a water dragon as it soared into the sky and swept across the sky. A demonic voice was emitted from the bottom of the vortex the moment the water pillar soared into the sky. It was like thunder from the 9 heavens as it resounded across the entire sky. Zhuowen was caught off guard. Under the influence of the demonic voice, he involuntarily retreated. His hands covered his ears as a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Bang! When the water pillar rose to the highest point, a pitch-black golem slowly floated up from the center of the vortex. This demon statue was extremely large and was nearly 10,000 feet long. Its appearance was that of a young man wearing purplish-black robes and possessing a pair of soul-stirring demonic eyes. Even such a demon statue possessed an unusual charm, as if the one in front of him was a real demon. This is the statue of the ultimate demon master. It was built by the ultimate demon sect at a great cost back then. It contains a trace of the ultimate demon master's essence. Back then, the statue of the ultimate demon master had always been the sect treasure of the ultimate demon sect. However, The ultimate demon sect provoked public anger, and countless factions from the 7 great prefectures surrounded the ultimate demon sect. The last person, the sect master of the ultimate demon sect, secretly withdrew with the statue of the ultimate demon master. I believe that this statue of the ultimate demon master should be the remains of the ultimate demon sect. The resources left behind by the ultimate demon sect are likely all within the statue of the ultimate demon master. Kang Jie said excitedly. Is that the entrance? Zhuowen's eyes immediately focused on the forehead of the statue. There was an inconspicuous hole there. It should be the entrance to the statue. Let's go in first. Kang Dai excitedly took a step forward and directly entered between the eyebrows of the statue. Looking at the excited Kang Dai, Zhuowen frowned slightly. However, he did not refuse and followed behind Kang Dai. The day I return will be the day of the Lord of Ultimate Demons. Mo Xing's voice was like thunder as it resounded throughout the entire dreamy cloud swampland. The numerous warriors who were searching around the dreamy cloud swampland paused one after another. Their gazes became sluggish as they looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with a fiery glow. The ruins of the Supreme Demon Sect have appeared. Amidst the misty clouds, the surrounding cultivators could vaguely make out the statue of Grand Demon Lord at the center of Dreamcloud Swampland, which was nearly 10,000 feet tall. Whoosh! Whoosh! Many sonic booms resounded. Immediately, countless practitioners surged towards the middle of the Dreamcloud Swampland when the statue of the Ultimate Demon Master appeared. No one wished to miss out on the treasures within the Ultimate Demon Sect ruins. It actually came out on its own? Or did someone activate the Supreme Demon Sect ruins in advance? In a water region not far from the center of the dreamy cloud swampland, a group was continuously searching. Soon after, they heard the demonic voice. Immediately, they raised their heads and saw the 10,000 feet tall statue standing not far in front of them. Zhuowen and Kang Jie were most familiar with this team. It was the team from the Great Kang Mansion. At this moment, the leader of the team was the Great Kang Mansion's mansion master Kang Jie. Behind Kang Jie were Kang Yang, Yaro Zhesheng, and a group of geniuses from the Great Kang Mansion. In addition, Kang Jie had also brought along most of the martial emperors from the Great Kang Mansion. Mansion Master, the statue of the Lord of Ultimate Demons is not far from us. Let's set off as well. Otherwise, others will take the initiative. Kang Yang suggested beside Kang Jie. Yes. Let's go together. In fact, with most of the map fragments, our Great Kang Mansion has already taken most of the initiative. As long as we enter the Ultimate Demon Sect ruins, we will be able to take advantage of the situation. As Kang Jie spoke, he also led many practitioners from the Great Kang Mansion towards the center. Not only the Great Kang Mansion, but the practitioners from the other 6 mansions also noticed the statue of the Lord of Ultimate Demons that had suddenly appeared and swarmed towards it. In an instant, a large number of practitioners swarmed towards the center like locusts. Such a large number of practitioners did not belong to the forces of the 7 mansions. Instead, they belonged to the various large and small sects or clans within the 7 mansions. Although their forces were not as strong as the 7 mansions, their numbers were extremely large. Ow! Ow! Mournful beast roars resounded throughout the Dreamcloud swampland. There were the mournful cries of ferocious beasts being killed and the miserable cries of practitioners being devoured by ferocious beasts. The originally peaceful Dreamcloud swampland had become a little lively at this moment. Behind the hole was a dark tunnel. Zhuowen did not know whether it was an illusion or not, but he found that there were wisps of indescribable demon chi lingering in the tunnel. The demon eye hidden in his body was also a little restless at this moment. What a strong demon chi! The Lord of Ultimate Demons is probably an extremely powerful demon cultivator. Xiao Hei's voice slowly sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Zhuowen nodded. However, what surprised him was that since the Lord of Ultimate Demons was the only one in the panicked world who had advanced to the Advanced Emperor realm, he should have no opponents at all. Why did he suddenly and mysteriously disappear? Moreover, he had disappeared without a trace, as if he had evaporated from the world. All of this made Zhuowen quite puzzled. Kang Jie. Do you know why the Lord of the Grand Demons, who used to be so vicious, would suddenly vanish without a trace? Zhuowen suddenly asked. He was not a practitioner of the panicked world, so his knowledge of the Lord of Ultimate Demons was very shallow. He could only ask Kang Jie. Kang Jie, who was standing beside Zhuowen, obviously did not expect Zhuowen to suddenly ask this. He was first stunned, then he revealed a thoughtful expression and said, "In fact, there are many different opinions about the truth of the disappearance of the Lord of Ultimate Demons in the panicked world. The most widely spread one is that the Lord of Ultimate Demons fought with the Guardian of the panicked world and won in the end and obtained the qualification to enter the upper world." The Guardian of the panicked world? There is an upper world. Zhuowen's eyes lit up and he immediately muttered in a low voice. You don't know about the Guardian of the panicked world and the upper world? Kang Jie was a little curious about Zhuowen's reaction and asked in a strange manner. Zhuowen shrugged his shoulders and shook his head, indicating that he did not know. Although Kang Jie was doubtful in his heart, he still patiently explained, I do not know much about the details. I only heard that there is an even higher world outside of the panicked world. Once your cultivation is able to break through the shackles of the advanced DI level, you will possess the qualification to fight with the Guardian of the panicked world. If you win, you will be sent to the upper world, obtain more resources and advance to a higher level. What if I fail? Zhuowen asked in a deep voice. Kang Jie's pretty eyes flickered as he continued, if you fail, it will depend on your luck. If you are lucky, there might be some remnant soul left that can be reincarnated. If you are unlucky, your soul will scatter. Hearing Kang Jie's words, Zhuowen revealed a thoughtful expression. He did not expect the panicked world to have a powerful guardian and a powerful upper world. Moreover, Zhuowen faintly guessed that the upper world was probably the third world of the Azure Dragon Palace. After all, the Lord of Grand Demon was an advanced DI level expert. Moreover, because he was a demonic cultivator, the Lord of Grand Demon was likely to be a demon emperor with terrifying battle strength. It should be relatively easy to break through the guardian of the panicked world. Let's continue forward. The Lord of Grand Demon is too far away from us. Let's search for treasures inside first. If we don't move forward, I'm afraid the people behind us will catch up. Kang Jie urged. Zhuowen nodded and immediately followed the tunnel into the depths. At the same time, he maintained a high level of vigilance. After all, the Lord of Grand Demon's statue stored the inheritance of Grand Demon's sect and many resources. If there was no danger inside, even a 3-year-old child would not believe it. There seems to be an exit in front. Kang Jie's eyes were sharp. She suddenly pointed ahead and said. Zhuowen also noticed the white light in front of them and nodded. However, he became even more vigilant. Who knew what was waiting for him at the exit? When the two of them finally walked out of the exit, the two of them discovered that there was actually an extremely large canyon in front of them. On the mountain wall in front of the canyon, there were actually 2 narrow passageways. From the looks of it, they should lead directly to the interior of the canyon. Outside the entrances of the 2 tunnels, there was a 1-meter-tall stone tablet. One tablet had the words Profound Ice Path written on it, and the other tablet had the words Scarlet Sun Path written on it. Profound Ice Path and Scarlet Sun Path? Zhuowen softly chanted the words on the 2 tablets. He could clearly feel a blazing aura and an icy aura at the entrances of the 2 tunnels. The 2 energies of ice and fire intertwined in the 2 tunnels, faintly turning into an extremely violent energy of ice and fire. Kang Jie originally wanted to get closer to take a look, but she was forced back by the energy of ice and fire near the tunnels. Of these 2 tunnels, one is extremely cold and the other is extremely hot. Zhuowen, which tunnel do you want to take? Kang Jie suddenly asked. Which tunnel do you want to take? Zhuowen asked back. Kang Jie shrugged her shoulders and said, that depends on you. In this super demon ruins, I can only rely on you for protection. Therefore, the decision is in your hands. Zhuowen smiled. Soon after, he took a step forward and walked towards the profound ice path. Kang Jie was stunned at first, but she could only follow closely behind Zhuowen. Zhuowen naturally had his own reasons for choosing the profound ice path. This was because in his ice saint symbol, There was the profound soul ice butterfly, a yuan beast that liked the cold. Being in the profound ice path might be beneficial to the profound soul ice butterfly. This was a world of ice and snow. The whistling wind and snow were like the sharpest wind blades, blowing in all directions. The moment they entered, Zhuowen could not help but feel the hairs on his body stand. The cold qi here was even more terrifying than he had expected. So cold. Kang Jie, who was standing beside Zhuowen, tightly hugged her chest. Her delicate body shivered as ice crystals formed on her eyebrows and long hair. Fire of the sun. Chapter 1196. Many treasures pavilion. What appeared in front of Zhuowen and Kang Dai was indeed a world of ice and snow. Ice crystals, rocks, and smooth mirror-like ground. Even the vegetation that grew on the ground was formed from ice and snow. Meanwhile, the sky was engulfed by a storm of ice and snow. The whistling sound of the wind tearing apart was extremely ear-piercing at this moment. What a terrifying cold qi. Just the cold qi that swept over from this world of ice and snow alone is comparable to Earth-grade cold qi. As he felt the bone-chilling cold around him, Zhuowen's eyes slightly darkened. At the same time, an extremely dazzling light erupted from the ice saint symbol on the back of his left hand. A sharp whistle sounded out, and soon after, the mysterious soul ice butterfly's large body appeared in front of Zhuowen. Woo woo woo. When the mysterious soul ice butterfly appeared, its pair of antennae intimately rubbed against Zhuowen. The furry feeling on the surface of the antennae caused Zhuowen's face to feel itchy. Little fellow, this mysterious ice path will be quite beneficial for you. Zhuowen patted the mysterious soul ice butterfly's head and said with a faint smile. As if it understood Zhuowen's words, the mysterious soul ice butterfly nodded its head. Its 5-colored eyes stared at the unceasingly raging cold qi in the sky, as a look of desire appeared in its eyes. Little fellow, escort us through this mysterious ice path first. Later, you will be able to absorb as much cold qi as you want. Zhuowen's words once again sounded out, causing the mysterious soul ice butterfly to cry out. Although it was a little reluctant, it did not dare to disobey Zhuowen's words. Swoosh! The mysterious soul ice butterfly spread its wings. Soon after, Zhuowen and Kang Dai stood on its back. After the two of them steadied themselves, the mysterious soul ice butterfly transformed into a flash of lightning and flew towards the opposite side of the mysterious ice path. This is the mysterious soul ice butterfly? No wonder you chose the mysterious ice path. It turns out that you have such a ride. Kang Dai was startled at first. Then, he seemed to have understood something and nodded. Zhuowen was too lazy to explain to her. When the Kang Dai proposed to come with him to the ruins of the Supreme Devil Sect, he already felt that something was wrong. Now, he found that the Kang Dai was becoming more and more suspicious. However, he couldn't tell what was suspicious about it, it was just a feeling in his heart. The cold wind blew against Zhuowen's face, bringing him a slight chill. However, Zhuowen didn't use any defensive measures. With his current strong physical body, he didn't need to use any means. The bone-chilling cold couldn't do any harm to him. Whoosh! Soon, the profound soul ice butterfly landed on the other side of the profound ice path. There was also a tunnel on the other side. Clearly, this tunnel led to the exit of the profound ice path. Little guy, go ahead. Enjoy the cold qi in the profound ice path to your heart's content. After reaching the other side, Zhuowen patted the mysterious soul ice butterfly's head. Soon after, the mysterious soul ice butterfly cried out and flew out. It soared and instantly reached the sky above the profound ice path. The berserk cold qi swept out and was directly swallowed by the mysterious soul ice butterfly. The mysterious soul ice butterfly's aura also continuously grew stronger in the process of swallowing the cold qi. The cold qi in this mystic ice path is quite strong. It's quite beneficial for the mystic soul ice butterfly's upgrade. You can let the mystic soul ice butterfly stay here first. When this little fellow has eaten and drunk its fill, it will naturally sense your call and return to your side. Little Black's voice slowly sounded in his mind. You are right. Let's let this little guy stay here for a while. Zhuowen nodded his head. Soon after, He brought Kang Dai and walked towards the exit tunnel. After walking out of the exit, the two of them arrived at an extremely simple and crude stone hall. This stone hall was only 50 to 60 feet in size and about 70 to 80 feet tall. There was a mysterious array in front of the stone hall. In addition, there was a several feet tall stone door on all four sides of the stone hall. At this moment, the stone doors were tightly shut, causing the stone hall to look like a prison. The atmosphere was quite solemn. There were various stone tables and stone stools randomly placed in the stone hall. There were about 10 of them. The instant the two of them walked into the stone hall, their footsteps paused. Zhuowen's eyes slightly focused as he surveyed the surroundings. His eyes landed on the mysterious array in the middle of the stone hall. Arriving in front of the array, Zhuowen looked down at the array pattern below his feet. His eyes flickered as he hesitantly said, "This array seems to be a teleportation array. However, it looks like it's damaged." "A damaged teleportation array?" Kang Dai also came over. At the same time, she giggled at Zhuowen. "Zhuowen, aren't you an Arcana master? You should be quite familiar with the way of origin formations, right? Why don't you repair this array and take a look? Perhaps this teleportation array can take us to the core of the extreme demon sect ruins." Zhuowen shrugged when he saw Kang Dai's appearance. He smiled bitterly. "This array is extremely mysterious. Even though I'm a grade 6 Arcana master, I can only understand a portion of it, let alone repair it." Kang Dai's eyes were filled with disappointment when she heard this. However, her interest quickly turned towards the 4 stone doors around the stone hall. Soon after, she arrived in front of a stone door on the east side and silently observed it. She said, "This stone hall is really strange. There's a damaged teleportation array in the middle, and there are actually 4 sealed doors around this stone hall. I really don't know what the person who designed the statue of the extreme demon lord was thinking." Zhuowen glanced indifferently at Kang Dai, who was pondering over the stone door. He no longer paid any attention to it. Instead, his gaze landed on the teleportation array. He transmitted his voice to Xiao He. "Xiao He, can you understand this teleportation array?" After waiting for around 5 breaths of time, Xiao He's voice sounded in his mind. "This teleportation array is not a yuan formation. It should be an ancient array from the ancient times. Moreover, it is extremely complicated. Although this Dragon Lord has some understanding of arrays, I am far from being proficient. However, I am certain that this teleportation array will definitely be able to teleport us to the core of the extreme demon sect ruins." Zhuowen's head was filled with black lines when he heard Xiao He's words. Wasn't this nonsense? However, other than this damaged teleportation array, there are 4 surrounding stone doors in this stone hall. Perhaps, behind these stone doors is another path to the core of the extreme demon sect ruins. Xiao He continued. Zhuowen's eyes revealed disappointment when he heard this. The teleportation array was placed at the center of the stone hall. It was definitely the most important thing. However, it was currently damaged and Zhuowen had no choice. It seemed that the only way to reach the depths of the extreme demon sect ruins was through the 4 stone doors around the stone hall. Rumble. Suddenly, the sound of gears turning woke Zhuowen up from his thoughts. Soon after, Zhuowen was astonished to see that the eastern stone door had unknowingly opened by itself. Kang Dai, who was originally probing at the side, took a few steps back. Her beautiful eyes were filled with surprise. "Haha. The stone door has opened. Zhuowen, look at how this lady has opened the stone door. Don't you think I'm awesome?" Kang Dai skipped over to Zhuowen's side. Her beautiful eyes were filled with hope, as if she was a child who was looking forward to a reward. She stared at Zhuowen rather proudly. Zhuowen arrived in front of the eastern door and said to Kang Dai in a deep voice, "How did you open it?" Kang Dai giggled as she arrived in front of Zhuowen. She stretched out a flawless white finger and said with a smile, "Why don't you guess?" Looking at Kang Dai's smug look, Zhuowen directly chose to ignore her. Instead, he walked over to the eastern door and carefully observed it. Suddenly, in the center of the left side of the stone door, there was a small groove. This groove should have been inlaid with a stone to act as a mechanism. Kang Dai should have accidentally pressed the stone into the groove, causing the eastern door to open. Seeing Zhuowen ignoring her, Kang Dai stomped her foot and waved her fist at Zhuowen's back. Her cheeks puffed up to express her dissatisfaction. Behind the eastern door was a flight of stairs that extended to the top. Moreover, this flight of stairs was in the shape of a spiral. In the range of 100 feet above the stairs, there was a thick layer of fog. At a glance, it was impossible to see what was above the 100 feet. "Do you want to go up and take a look?" Zhuowen turned around and asked Kang Dai behind him. Kang Dai pouted, turned her head, and said in a muffled voice, "No, if you want to go, you go." Looking at Kang Dai's expression, Zhuowen knew that this little girl should be angry with his behavior just now. However, he didn't care too much and said indifferently, "I'll go up first to explore. If it's not dangerous, I'll use the communication jade talisman to inform you. Then you can come up. How about it?" Kang Dai's beautiful eyes rolled as she nodded and said, "Okay, you can explore for me." Zhuowen nodded and immediately took a step forward. Then, he walked up step by step. After he walked up 100 feet and passed through the layer of fog, he saw through the gap in the fog and discovered that on the other side of the gap, there was actually a long white jade bridge about 100 feet long. This long white jade bridge was like a rootless duckweed, floating in the void on the other side of the fog. This bridge was extremely exquisite, with carved railings and jades. One end was connected to the exit of the fog, and the other end was connected to the floating four-cornered pavilion in the middle of the space. This pavilion was 150 m tall and was divided into 3 floors. It was completely carved out of beautiful jade that was sparkling and glowing. It stood towering in midair like a jade platform in an immortal realm, and there were 3 large words written on the top of the pavilion, "Bountiful Treasures Pavilion." There's actually a floating pavilion here. Could it be that there are treasures in this pavilion? Zhuowen didn't immediately step onto the long white jade bridge. Instead, he carefully observed the pavilion. Only then did he discover that on the other side of the pavilion, there was actually a flight of stairs that led to an even higher level. It seemed that that was the path to the next checkpoint. Taking out the communication jade talisman, Zhuowen sent a message to Kang Dai and waited silently. However, after waiting for a quarter of an hour, Kang Dai still hadn't come up. This caused Zhuowen to frown slightly. Why hasn't she come up yet? Could it be that something happened? The more he thought about it, the more he felt that something was wrong. Zhuowen walked down the stairs and quickly arrived at the east entrance. Immediately, he saw that Kang Dai was still in the stone hall, but she was actually standing in the middle of the array. Moreover, her jade-like hands were gently waving, as if she was focused on doing something to the array. Chapter 1197. Teleportation Array Kang Dai. What are you doing? Seeing the scene in the stone hall, Zhuowen frowned. He realized that the current Kang Dai was rather strange, especially the black qi that was being emitted from Kang Dai's jade-like hands. It actually contained a strange demonic intent, and this demonic intent caused him to be extremely fearful. Kang Dai did not pay attention to Zhuowen, who was calling out to him from behind. Instead, he concentrated on fiddling with his hands. The black qi in his hands became denser and denser, faintly showing signs of turning purple. The demonic nature that was being emitted from them also became more and more strange. As he got closer, Zhuowen realized that Kang Dai was actually repairing the broken teleportation array in the middle of the stone hall. Furthermore, from the looks of it, it seemed that the teleportation array was about to be completely repaired. Boom! When Zhuowen was within 5 meters of the teleportation array, a burst of black qi rushed over and fiercely smashed into his chest. Fortunately, Zhuowen reacted in time and spat out the power of his right palm, smashing into the black qi. Bang! A dull explosive sound rang out, and Zhuowen retreated a few steps. His eyes narrowed, revealing an extreme chill. The current Kang Dai was simply too strange. The instant Zhuowen retreated, the teleportation array in the middle of the stone hall actually burst out with a blazing black light. Under the illumination of this black light, the entire stone hall appeared to be pitch black. Within the pitch black light, there were numerous ghosts that were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws, constantly wreaking havoc. Ha ha! Is the repair finally complete? At the same time, Kang Dai, who was waving her jade-like hands, finally stopped. Soon after, she slowly turned around, her eyes revealing a pitch-black light as she quietly stared at Zhuowen. Who are you? Looking at the demonic Kang Dai in front of him, Zhuowen's heart actually palpitated as he asked in a deep voice. Kang Dai quietly stared at Zhuowen and said with a sweet smile, I am Kang Dai, don't tell me that you don't recognize me the moment you go up. You are not Kang Dai. Who are you? Zhuowen snorted coldly. He took a step forward and dashed towards the dish that was filled with demonic nature. He stretched out his right hand and the power of Buddhism gushed out. He punched out, and the wind from his fist howled. The corners of Kang Jie's mouth curled up into a smile as he stepped into the array that was still being repaired. Instantly, a black light burst out from the array and a demonic aura spread out. The entire stone hall was shrouded in demonic clouds. The demonic clouds that permeated the air caused the entire stone hall to freeze. Zhuowen also felt a heavy pressure weighing down on his body. Boundless Buddha's light. Zhuowen let out a low snort. His entire body was filled with Buddhist light, and the surrounding demonic clouds were instantly dispelled under the illumination of the Buddhist light. Whoosh! The moment the devil cloud was dispelled, Zhuowen took a step forward, turning into a blur as he rushed towards the transmission array in front of him, intending to stop Kang Dai from leaving. Zhuowen, it's too late. You won't be able to stop me. As soon as Kang Dai finished speaking, he disappeared from the teleportation array, leaving Zhuowen with nothing to show for it. This transmission array has been repaired by Kang Dai in some way. Can you try to activate it again? Xiao Hei's voice suddenly sounded in Zhuowen's mind. Zhuowen nodded and stepped into the transmission array. He exerted force from his right hand, intending to activate the transmission array under his feet. Suddenly, the black light from before appeared again. It can be used. A trace of pleasant surprise appeared in Zhuowen's eyes when he saw this scene. However, he was soon disappointed to discover that the dark black light around the teleportation array only lasted for a moment before it completely disappeared and came to a halt. Zhuowen's eyes were slightly startled. The transmission array on the other side should have been destroyed by Kang Dai. Therefore, even if your transmission array is intact, it will be useless. You won't be able to teleport over, Xiao Hei said in a deep voice. This guy, Zhuowen muttered to himself angrily. At the same time, he was even more puzzled about Kang Dai in his heart. Who was this Kang Dai? From the demonic light emitted from its body, it seemed like Kang Dai was possessed by some kind of demon. Looking at the transmission array, it should be the core area of the extreme demon sect ruins. I'm afraid that the greatest benefits inside will be taken by Kang Dai, Xiao Hei said with an ugly expression. Zhuowen nodded and asked in a deep voice, then what should we do now? Since the transmission array can't be used, you can only go down the road from the east gate. After all, it's impossible for there to be 4 stone gates around the stone hall for no reason, Xiao Hei analyzed. It seems that I can only go to the east gate. However, there should be some treasures in the treasure pavilion at the east gate. When the time comes, I will go in and take a look. Zhuowen nodded. Just as he was about to step out, he suddenly frowned and his eyes revealed a cold expression. What's wrong? Xiao Hei also noticed Zhuowen's expression and suddenly asked. The profound soul ice butterfly suddenly sent me a distress signal. I'm afraid that it has encountered some kind of danger in the profound ice path, Zhuowen said with a somewhat ugly expression. Xiao Hei was taken aback. Soon after, she said in a somewhat cold voice, encountered danger. I have to go take a look at the profound ice path first. As he spoke, Zhuowen took a step forward and rushed towards the profound ice path. At this moment, in the profound ice path that was filled with ice and snowstorms, a resentful cry continuously sounded out. Immediately, above the ice and snowstorm, the profound soul ice butterfly continuously flapped its wings. Under the profound soul ice butterfly's control, the ice and snowstorm wreaked havoc in the entire profound ice path. Below the ice and snowstorm, a figure stood in the air. Yuan power continuously surged out from his body, faintly blocking all of the ice and snowstorm controlled by the profound soul ice butterfly, and even showing signs of suppressing it. I never imagined that we would encounter such a rare yuan beast like the profound soul ice butterfly on the profound ice path. Such a yuan beast has the potential to become a demon emperor. If properly nurtured, it will be of great benefit to our great Dew Institute in the future. On the other side of the battlefield stood a group led by a muscular middle-aged man in bronze armor. If Zhuowen was here, he would definitely recognize this person as the great Dew Institute's headmaster, Zhu Bin. Standing behind Zhu Bin were naturally the numerous practitioners of the great Dew Institute. Oh! Zhu Chang has used the Chengqi bronze sword. Looks like the outcome of this battle has already been decided. A smile hung from the corners of Zhu Bin's mouth as he softly said. At this moment, amidst the endless wind and snow, Zhu Chang's gaze was eerily cold. The bronze sword in his hand suddenly slashed out. Green sword aura surged out like the scorching sun, forming an incomparably enormous Chengqi beast. Awoo! The Chengqi beast's body was enormous, so large that it seemed to blot out the sun. Its torrential aura practically covered the profound soul ice butterfly. It opened its bloody mouth and suddenly inhaled. Immediately, the endless wind and snow in the surroundings were sucked into its mouth, causing the raging wind and snow in the surroundings to completely disappear. Swoosh! The instant the wind and snow disappeared, light gushed out from Zhu Chang's eyes. He took a step forward and instantly arrived in front of the profound soul ice butterfly. A grim expression filled the corners of his mouth as he chuckled, "Little bastard. Previously, I was unable to take you down because you had the profound ice path's ice storm for you to use. Now, let's see what else you can fight with me for. Obediently become my mount." As he spoke, the bronze sword in Zhu Chang's right hand slashed out. The profound soul ice butterfly shrieked as it spread its wings. Countless ice arrows shot out, forming a rain of arrows that enveloped Zhu Chang's entire body. Zhu Chang's gaze was eerily cold. He twirled the bronze sword and the green sword aura turned into an oval sword shield, blocking the rain of arrows. At the same time, Zhu Chang took a step forward and arrived in front of the profound soul ice butterfly. The bronze sword slashed out horizontally, heavily slamming into the profound soul ice butterfly's body. Awoo! The profound soul ice butterfly let out a sorrowful cry. An extremely terrifying wound had appeared on its lower abdomen, causing it to suddenly fall from the sky. Bang! Zhu Chang slowly landed on the ground with a sinister smile on his face. He slowly walked towards the profound soul ice butterfly. When he arrived in front of the profound soul ice butterfly, he nonchalantly said, "Submit to me and I will properly train you." The profound soul ice butterfly's eyes were filled with resentment. It turned its head, completely ignoring Zhu Chang. As for the latter's words, it naturally would not listen. "You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit?" Zhu Chang's gaze turned cold. He lifted his foot and suddenly stomped down. He was going to properly teach this damned profound soul ice butterfly a lesson. However, the moment his right foot was about to land, a monstrous killing intent enveloped his entire body, causing his right foot to be unable to land for a long time. This killing intent was very terrifying, so terrifying that it caused his heart to palpitate. "You can try to stomp down." A cold voice resounded in front of the profound ice path. The profound soul ice butterfly, which was originally squinting, suddenly raised its head. Its colorful eyes were filled with joy. It knew that its master had come to save it. When Zhu Chang heard this voice, his pupils shrank to the size of needles. This voice was simply too familiar to him. Or rather, it could be said that he simply could not forget it. "Zhuowen." Slowly raising his head and staring at the slowly approaching figure, Zhu Chang softly murmured with an ugly expression. Zhuowen walked up to the profound soul ice butterfly and coldly stared at Zhu Chang. He said, "The profound soul ice butterfly is my mount. You dare to steal from me?" In response to Zhuowen's question, Zhu Chang narrowed his eyes and indifferently said, "This profound soul ice butterfly is clearly absorbing the icy chi on the profound ice path by itself. It doesn't look like it has an owner at all. Since when did it become yours? Then you're saying that you want to steal from me?" Zhuowen took a step forward and Buddhist power surged out. Immediately, A dazzling golden Buddha figure stepped out from his body. Zhuowen's eyes exploded with golden light as they stared straight at Zhu Chang, causing the latter to feel a chill in his heart. Back then, during the hero competition, he was completely defeated by this Buddha figure in front of everyone's eyes. Zhu Chang had personally experienced how terrifying Zhuowen's strength was back then. However, many of the Great Kang Mansion's cultivators were behind him. Therefore, Zhu Chang was not very worried about Zhuowen messing around. He coldly said, "It's clearly you who stole from me. I think you're twisting the truth." Twisting the truth? Zhuowen laughed. Zhuowen's Buddha figure took a step forward and fiercely punched out. The fist radiance seemed to be plated with gold as it exploded with boundless Buddhist light. Zhu Chang was caught off guard. He simply did not expect Zhuowen to directly attack. In a panic, he blocked the punch and was forced to retreat dozens of steps with a groan. Chapter 1198. Giant beast swoosh swoosh swoosh. The instant Zhu Chang was pushed back by Zhuowen, Zhu Bin led the Great Zhu Institute to Zhu Chang's side. Zhu Bin's eyes narrowed slightly as he coldly stared at Zhuowen and said, "Zhuowen, what is the meaning of this?" Zhuowen's eyes were filled with wariness as he looked at Zhu Bin standing beside Zhu Chang. Zhu Bin's aura was even stronger than the Great Kang Mansion's Cungjie. Zhuowen estimated that this person was at least a 5th-level emperor. Such an expert was not someone he could contend against at the moment. Zhuowen indifferently retorted, "Nothing much. This profound soul ice butterfly is my mount. This Zhu Chang doesn't know what's good for him and actually has designs on my mount. He's simply courting death. Is there anything wrong with me stopping him? Haha. This profound soul ice butterfly appeared on the profound ice path. Why do you claim that it's yours the moment you arrive? Zhuowen, you can't be so shameless." Zhu Chang coldly snorted and mocked. Although he was extremely wary of Zhuowen's strength, he naturally did not place Zhuowen in his eyes with Zhu Bin's support. Since Zhu Chang has already said so, it's obvious that you're trying to snatch it from him. You're really bold. Zhu Bin's eyes were eerily cold as he took a step forward. Terrifying emperor pressure gushed out as a wisp of killing intent completely locked onto Zhuowen, causing Zhuowen's body to stiffen. Zhuowen's eyelids twitched violently. Zhu Bin had completely locked onto him with killing intent without any hesitation. How could he not know the reason behind this? It was definitely because Zhuowen had helped the Great Kang Mansion gain the limelight during the hero competition, causing the Great Zhu Institute to lose the qualifications to be the victor. Therefore, Zhu Bin was targeting him like this. Haha. Zhu Bin, you're already so old, yet you're bullying the young. Don't you feel ashamed? A long laugh sounded from behind the instant Zhu Bin's killing intent locked onto Zhuowen. Soon after, another group that was not any weaker than the Great Zhu Institute landed near Zhuowen. The leader of the group landed beside Zhuowen. With a wave of his sleeve, he immediately withdrew the emperor pressure released by Zhu Bin. Palace Master Cungjie. Looking at the imposing figure beside him, Zhuowen bowed and spoke respectfully. Cungjie smiled and said to Zhuowen, "You don't have to do that. Zhuowen, you are also a member of the Great Kang Mansion. If Zhu Bin wants to avenge his personal grudge, I, Cungjie, will not let him succeed." Sure enough, Zhu Bin's face turned slightly ugly when he heard that. Although his strength was considered to be extremely strong among the 7 mansion masters, Cungjie of the Great Kang Mansion was not weak either. If Cungjie really wanted to protect Zhuowen, there was nothing he could do. Zhu. Let's wait and see. Zhu Bin's eyes flickered. In the end, he gave up on the conflict with the Great Kang Manor. Their goal in entering the Great Demon Sect ruins was to obtain the numerous treasures of the Great Demon Sect. If they started a war with the Great Kang Manor because of Zhuowen, it would undoubtedly be an extremely unwise action. As he spoke, Zhu Bin led the group from the Great Zhu Institute and Great Kang Manor to the other side of the mysterious ice path. Let's go too. Cungjie shot a glance at the black soul ice butterfly squatting beside Zhuowen. He did not say anything and merely gave a shout before leading the group and following closely behind. Every second was a race against time. If one's actions were not fast enough, all the treasures would be snatched away. Zhuowen knew that Songjie should have also recognized the black soul ice butterfly. However, he did not say anything. Evidently, he did not have any improper thoughts about Zhuowen's black soul ice butterfly. This caused Zhuowen to have a much better impression of him. The two groups from the Great Kang Manor and the Great Ju Institute also arrived at the stone hall at the exit of the mysterious ice path. Ju Bin and Songjie also noticed the teleportation array at the center of the stone hall. However, they lost interest when they discovered that the teleportation array could not be activated. There are 4 stone doors here. The eastern door has already been opened. Perhaps behind these 4 doors is the passageway that leads to the depths of the Great Demon Sect ruins. Ju Bin's gaze landed on the already opened eastern door as he spoke in an indifferent voice. "Won't we know once we go in?" Songjie smiled. Ju Bin nodded. Soon after, he said, "From the looks of it, the stairs can only accommodate 10 people at most. We will each send 4 people to follow the 2 of us into the eastern door. If there really is a passageway, we will use the communication jade token to inform them." Songjie naturally did not have any objections. Soon after, the 2 great manor heads began to select the people to enter. Songjie turned around and smiled. "Kang Yang, Kang Fei, Kang Yong and Zhuowen. The 4 of you will follow me." Upon hearing this, Kang Yang, Zhuowen and the other 3 naturally acknowledged. They all knew that there was an 80% chance that there would be a unique treasure on the stairs. Therefore, the first batch of people to enter would basically be able to obtain considerable benefits. However, within the Great Kang Institute group, Yarou Zhesheng's heart turned cold. Songjie did not pick him, but Zhuowen. It was very obvious that in Songjie's heart, Yarou Zhesheng's importance was far inferior to Zhuowen. This caused Yarou Zhesheng's resentment towards Zhuowen to grow even more. Ju Bin was also one of the 4 people selected from the Great Ju Institute group. Naturally, the 2 great geniuses, Ju Hui and Ju Chang, were among them. The gazes that the 2 of them used to look at Zhuowen were filled with hostility. Because of Zhuowen, the 2 of them had lost all face during the hero gathering. How could they possibly give Zhuowen any face? Zhuowen did not pay too much attention to the numerous hostile gazes around him. What he cared about was the identity of the person who had completely repaired the teleportation array and teleported it away. In particular, the demonic nature on Kang Dai's body was just too terrifying. Even though Zhuowen had the experience of cultivating the demonic path, he still felt a throbbing sensation from Kang Dai's body at that time. What he was most puzzled about was who exactly Kang Dai was. Back then, when Kang Dai had planned to search the extreme demon sect ruins with Ziyi, he had already felt that something was amiss. Everything that had happened now coincidentally confirmed Zhuowen's initial premonition. "I feel that Kang Dai is somewhat related to the extreme demon sect. Moreover, their relationship should be quite deep. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to repair such a complicated teleportation array in the stone hall by himself." Xiao Hei's grave voice sounded out in Zhuowen's mind, causing Zhuowen to repeatedly nod his head. Soon after, Zhuowen softly sighed and transmitted a message. "Only by first entering the core area of the extreme demon sect will we perhaps be able to find out who Kang Dai is. Yes. You should be careful from now on. It would be best if you follow behind the Great Kang Mansion and the Great Ju Institute. After all, Kang Jie and Ju Bin are not weak and can help you sweep away many obstacles ahead." After Xiao Hei finished speaking, his voice gradually quietened down. "Since we have already chosen our people, let's go up and take a look." Ju Bin waved his sleeves and took the lead to step onto the stairs with Ju Chang and the other 3. Not to be outdone, Songjie followed closely behind. The group of 10 quickly passed through the heavy mist above. Through the crack in front of the mist, they saw the long white jade bridge across the void and the treasure pavilion at the end of the long bridge. "Treasure pavilion? Don't tell me there are treasures inside." Ju Bin stared at the pavilion and muttered in a low voice. Light flickered in his eyes. "Let's go in and take a look." Songjie was rather decisive in his actions. After speaking, he stepped onto the long white jade bridge. Ju Bin was naturally not to be outdone and followed behind Songjie. The geniuses from the two manors followed behind the two manor heads and silently walked onto the long white jade bridge. Zhuo Wen, on the other hand, followed behind him silently. No one knew what he was thinking. The instant the 10 of them were about to reach the entrance of the treasure pavilion, the entire long white jade bridge suddenly trembled violently. Soon after, a deafening roar sounded from the endless abyss below the bridge. Swoosh! Soon after, a several hundred feet large black shadow dashed out from the bottom of the abyss. "Be careful!" Zhu Bin and Sungjie shouted at the same time. Soon after, two terrifying emperor auras gushed out. The two of them rushed out and directly rushed towards the huge black shadow. Boom, boom, boom! The earth quaked and the mountains swayed. Even the treasure pavilion trembled because of this vibration. Standing on the long bridge, Kang Yang, Zhuowen, and the rest revealed looks of astonishment. One after another, they leapt into the air and hovered in the air as they stared at the terrifying and intense battle not far away. Only then did Zhuowen see the true appearance of the black shadow that had suddenly rushed out from the abyss. The beast was more than 100 feet long and looked like a tadpole. It was pitch black and had horns on its back. Its tail was dozens of feet long like a fish's tail. There is such a terrifying giant beast in the abyss. This giant beast's power is not weaker than an ordinary mid-level emperor. Moreover, its physical body is extremely terrifying. Zhu Chang muttered with a slightly pale face. The other 7 did not look any better. The giant beast's power was indeed terrifying. If the 8 of them were to face this giant beast, they would probably be in deep trouble. Zhuo Wen heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. Fortunately, he hadn't rashly gone to the treasure pavilion alone. If he had to face this giant beast alone, his fate wouldn't have been good. Zhu Bin and Sungjie's strength was considered quite powerful among mid-level emperors. Although the giant beast was ferocious and had a thick skin, it was still no match for Zhu Bin and Sungjie's combined strength. With a mournful cry, the giant beast exploded into a cloud of blood mist under Zhu Bin and Sungjie's attacks. Countless drops of blood turned into a rain of blood and sprinkled down. Swoosh swoosh! Zhu Bin and Sungjie returned to the long white jade bridge. They were slightly out of breath and their chests were heaving up and down. Obviously, it was not easy for them to deal with this giant beast. What kind of meta beast is this? Why is it so difficult to deal with? Zhu Bin frowned and asked. Sungjie shook his head and smiled bitterly. I don't know. Fortunately, the two of us joined forces. Otherwise, it would be extremely difficult to deal with if we were to face it alone. Let's not talk about this. Let's enter the treasure pavilion and have a look. Perhaps there will be good things inside. Chapter 1199. Super Devil Fighting Arts. The area inside the multi-treasure pavilion was quite large. There were rows of round jade platforms that were about 10 feet high inside. These jade platforms were of different sizes. They were carved out of beautiful white sparkling jade. They were densely distributed in the pavilion. There were lights flashing on the jade platforms. Above the jade platforms, there were semicircular light shields of different colors. Through these light shields, Zhuowen and the others could see some objects floating in the light shields. At the same time, on both sides of the pavilion's entrance, there were 2 stone statues, each of which was about 10 feet high. These stone statues depicted a demon statue with rolling black gas. These 2 demon statues seemed out of place in the treasure pavilion, which was full of jewelry. Because these 2 demon statues were not very conspicuous, Zhu Bin, Sungjie and the others subconsciously ignored them. Only Zhuowen took a second look at these demon statues, because he could feel that the demonic aura of these 2 demon statues was somewhat similar to that of Kang Di, who had disappeared in the teleportation formation. You can only take 1 treasure from the treasure pavilion. Once you take it, you will be teleported out. A thunder-like voice was emitted from within the pavilion. After it was transmitted 3 times, it became silent. You can only take 1 treasure, and you will be teleported out. Zhu Bin and Sungjie looked at each other with a strange look in their eyes. Zhu Chang, Zhu Hui, Zhu Lan and Zhu Yi, the 4 of you search carefully in this pavilion. It's best to pick the best treasure before you go out. Do you understand? Zhu Bin said to the 4 people behind him. The 4 of them nodded. Immediately, they turned into 4 shadows and rushed toward the 4 directions of the pavilion, intending to pick the best treasure to bring out. Since there was a rule that stated that they could only take 1 treasure, they naturally had to do so and strive to get the best treasure to bring out. It was the same in the Great Kang Mansion. They all spread out, hoping to find the best treasure to bring out. However, when they observed the treasures on the jade platforms, they found that the light shields could actually block the detection of mind sense. In other words, they did not know the true appearance of the treasures inside the light shields. They could not even detect the aura of the treasures. After realizing this, everyone stopped picking treasures. Zhu Bin and Songjie's faces were slightly ugly. What should we do? Zhu Bin asked Songjie. Sigh. The person who designed this store of treasures is really insidious. Although there are many treasures in the store of treasures, they are all hidden. We have no way to choose these treasures. Songjie said helplessly. Since that's the case, we can only try them one by one. Zhu Lan, pick a treasure and take a look. Zhu Bin instructed Zhu Lan, who was not far away. Zhu Lan nodded. She stepped out and casually arrived in front of a jade platform. She stretched out her right hand and a terrifying origin energy crushed out, shattering the light barrier and retrieving the treasure inside. This treasure was a large blade that emitted flames. The moment this blade appeared, the surrounding temperature rose. It's only a low-grade Emperor rank spirit treasure? Zhu Bin frowned slightly when he saw the flaming saber in Zhu Lan's hand, and he spoke with slight displeasure. Whoosh! The instant Zhu Lan pulled out the blazing blade, a pillar of light enveloped her. In the next second, Zhu Lan was sent out. It seems that the voice was right. Once a treasure is taken, the store of treasures will send you out. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself. After Zhu Lan was sent out, Zhu Bin repeated the same trick and allowed the remaining 3 people to choose their own treasures. However, it was a pity that the treasures chosen by the 3 of them were basically monarch soul treasures. This caused Zhu Bin's expression to become somewhat ugly. At his level of cultivation, Emperor rank spirit treasures were really difficult to catch his eye. Only Emperor weapons could truly move him. Songjie's method was similar to Zhu Bin's, but Songjie's luck was much better than Zhu Bin's. Kang Yang actually got a low-grade Emperor weapon, which caused Zhu Bin's gaze to turn slightly unfriendly. Zhuowen, do you want to choose first? At this moment, only Zhu Bin, Songjie, and Zhuowen were left in the store of treasures. Songjie looked at Zhuowen and asked. Zhuowen shook his head and said with a smile, I'm not in a hurry. I still want to take a look. Maybe I can see some amazing Emperor weapons. Songjie shook his head when he heard Zhuowen's bold words. Apparently, he did not care too much about Zhuowen's words. However, Zhu Bin sneered again and again. Since Zhuowen was not in a hurry to choose, Zhu Bin and Songjie naturally would not accompany Zhuowen. After scanning the interior of the pavilion, Songjie and Zhu Bin did not hesitate to choose their own treasures. However, they were very smart. They directly put their treasures into their spirit rings and did not show the array of treasures to each other. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 2 pillars of light rang out. Then, Songjie and Zhu Bin were sent away by the transmission array. In an instant, only Zhuowen was left in the store of treasures. Xiaohei, do you feel that the aura of the 2 demon statues beside the door is very similar to that of the Kang dish? Zhuowen stood quietly and suddenly asked. Xiaohei nodded and said, they are indeed similar. Go and take a look. Maybe you can find something different. Hearing this, Zhuowen took a step forward. The demon statue was not a treasure on the jade platform in the store of treasures. Even if Zhuowen put it away, it would not be sent away by the store of treasures. Previously, Songjie and Zhu Bin were there, so Zhuowen did not act rashly. Coming in front of the demon statue, Zhuowen quietly looked at it. Soon, he found that the face of the demon statue was very blurry, as if its face was covered by a layer of fog. After observing for a long time, Zhuowen did not find anything. His eyes flashing, Zhuowen murmured in a low voice, let's see if the demon eye has any effect on it. As he spoke, a crack appeared between Zhuowen's brows, and an incomparably black demonic eye appeared. Subsequently, a demonic light shot out from the demonic eye and imprinted itself between the brows of the two demonic figures. Boom. Soon after, Zhuo Wen was shocked to discover that the originally blurry faces of the two golems had actually started to become clear. At the same time, their tightly shut eyes slowly opened, revealing a pair of demonic pupils. Zhuo Wen could see a vast amount of information in those pupils. The demon battle art is a demonic cultivation code created by the Lord of the Grand Demons. This code can completely control the power of the demonic path, so demonic cultivators will no longer suffer from the power of the demonic path. It can make demonic cultivators use the power of the demonic path and enslave them. Moreover, the demon battle art can pour Yuan Qi into the body and convert it into demon battle Qi. The demon battle Qi is even more terrifying than Yuan Qi. Demonic cultivators who obtain the demon battle Qi will be able to battle the heavens, earth, and gods. They will possess unparalleled power. Zhuo Wen's eyes shone brightly as he slowly opened them. He never thought that he would actually obtain the grand demonic battle method that the Grand Demonic Lord had created in the past within the two statues. Crack. After obtaining the extreme demonic battle art, the two demonic figures in front of Zhuo Wen crumbled. Then, two round beads surrounded by black energy appeared within the two demonic figures. The demonic Qi within these two beads is so dense. Moreover, the demonic Qi is even more powerful than ordinary demonic Qi. Is this the so-called demon battle Qi? Zhuo Wen could not help but exclaim when he sensed the powerful demonic Qi within the two beads. It should be the demon battle Qi. Kid, if you absorb the demon battle Qi in here, I sense that your power of the demonic path will reach the 5th layer. At that time, you'll be able to create a demonic body with the Buddha demon eyes. At that time, your battle prowess will increase once again if the 3 clones of the Buddha, demon, and human merge into one, Xiao Hei suddenly said excitedly. Zhuo Wen nodded and said, I'll stay in the Bountiful Treasures Pavilion for 3 days. It would be best if I'm able to rely on the Great Devil Qi to deduce the 5th level of the bedevilment path. If I'm unable, then I'll leave directly. Yes, you can. After all, you're currently in the Great Demon Sect ruins. If you cultivate for too long, I'm afraid that the good things inside would have already been taken away by others. Xiao Hei agreed. After saying that, Zhuo Wen did not waste any more time. He sat down cross-legged on the spot and held a bead in his right hand. He began to circulate the demonic path in his body. Immediately, surging demon Qi enveloped Zhuo Wen's entire body, causing the current Zhuo Wen to appear extremely strange. 3 days passed slowly. During this period, other mansion masters also arrived at the Bountiful Treasures Pavilion. Although they also noticed Zhuo Wen, who was surrounded by surging demon Qi in the corner, they did not have the slightest intention of disturbing Zhuo Wen. After all, the other mansion masters also knew that Zhuo Wen was a member of the Great Kang Mansion. If they secretly killed Zhuo Wen, the Great Kang Mansion's Cungjie would probably kill them. In addition, the demon Qi surrounding Zhuo Wen gave everyone an extremely powerful feeling. Therefore, although Zhuo Wen was cultivating there, the recent warriors of the Bountiful Treasures Pavilion seemed to treat Zhuo Wen as a stone statue and had no intention of disturbing him at all. When the 3rd day arrived, the demon Qi around Zhuo Wen suddenly surged. Then, the surging black demon Qi fell in front of Zhuo Wen and began to squirm continuously. Finally, it formed an incomparably black body. This figure was filled with a powerful demonic aura. His pitch-black hair was mixed with a dark red blood color, giving off a strange blood-black color. There were 3 bloody scars on his cold and indifferent face. His demonic eyes were a mixture of black and red, giving him a strange appearance. Boom! The demonic body slowly landed on the ground and suddenly opened its eyes. Suddenly, demon Qi surged out and formed a terrifying demon cloud in the void behind it. At this moment, many warriors had entered the Bountiful Treasures Pavilion. When these warriors saw the figure in the corner of the pavilion, they all stopped in their tracks and a look of fear flashed in their eyes. He punched out with his right fist and the light shield on the jade platform shattered. Zhuowen did not even look at what kind of treasure he was holding. After taking it out, a teleportation force enveloped him and he turned into a light pillar and left the treasure house. Zhuowen's speed was extremely fast. He completed this series of actions in the blink of an eye. Many of the cultivators in the bountiful treasure pavilion did not even have time to react before Zhuowen disappeared into the light pillar. When these warriors finally reacted, they discovered that the Buddha and devil powers created by Zhuowen had erupted. Thus, everyone began to panic. Just like Zhuowen, they immediately took a treasure and left. Unfortunately, they missed the best time to escape. The explosive power of the Buddha demon energy was too terrifying. It almost enveloped the entire multi-treasure pavilion. The warriors who were still in the multi-treasure pavilion were instantly enveloped by this violent energy. Soon after, miserable screams rang out one after another. Zhuowen, who had already left, naturally didn't care about those cultivators who had suffered an unexpected calamity. Or rather, he simply didn't know that Zhuowen was currently in a rather spacious passageway. In this passageway, there were many hard metal arms and legs scattered about. They should be some kind of powerful puppet. It seems that many people have already passed through here. I have to catch up with them quickly. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He took a step forward, turned into a black lightning, and disappeared into the passageway. As for Zhuowen, he was actually quite satisfied with obtaining the super demonic battle art and super demonic battle chi, especially with the help of the super demonic battle chi to push bedevilment to the 5th level and create a demonic body. The demonic body's offensive power was even more terrifying than the Buddha body. If the demonic body could become a demon emperor, its power would be extremely terrifying. It might even be able to fight against a mid-level martial emperor. However, Zhuowen was disappointed that the combination of the Buddha and the demonic body had failed. It seemed that he would have to work harder in this aspect. After all, the combination of the Buddha and the demonic body was indeed very tempting. What a strong smell of blood. Shuttling through the passageway, Zhuowen quickly sensed that there was an extremely strong smell of blood in the air. The smell of blood lingered in Zhuowen's nose, causing him to frown slightly. Even though he cultivated the demon Tao of massacre, he still felt a chill in the terrifying smell of blood. How many people did one have to kill to produce such a terrifying smell of blood? Moreover, Zhuowen found that the deeper he went into the passageway, the thicker the smell of blood became. It almost made him feel nauseous, which made him feel strange. Finally, after shuttling through the passageway for nearly an hour, Zhuowen came to a large hall. This hall was extremely large, spanning dozens of miles. The entire hall was blood-red, and the 4 walls of this hall were piled up with piles of bones. At this moment, at the very center of this hall of bones, there was a blood pool that was several miles wide. Countless corpses were piled up around the blood pool. The entire scene was like a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood, which was extremely terrifying and strange. Moreover, the blood pool was even more strange. Countless blood vessel-like branches grew out of it, which pounced on the surrounding corpses and began to suck the blood from the corpses. The blood flowed along these vessel-like branches and constantly flowed into the blood pool, causing the blood pool to constantly churn. During this period, there were even blood-colored bubbles. Zhuowen frowned slightly. This hall of bones was really too strange. Moreover, the thick smell of blood made him feel nauseous. This feeling was definitely not a physical one, but a spiritual one. No. Don't suck my blood, don't. Among the countless corpses, a figure bathed in blood screamed and hurriedly crawled away from the side of the blood pool, wanting to leave the blood pool. However, the countless blood vessel-like branches that grew out of the blood pool were like the toughest ropes in the world, binding the figure in a sorry state. Save me. Save me. The person quickly noticed Zhuowen, who had just arrived at the hall. His throat was dry, and he used his right hand to ask for help from Zhuowen. Without any hesitation, Zhuowen took a step forward and arrived in front of the man. The 7 kills saber in his hand swept out and slashed out. Immediately, the blood vessels and branches that were entangling the man were all shattered. Blood gushed out like a water column. After severing these blood vessels and branches, Zhuowen extended his left hand and grabbed the person. Just as he was about to fly away, Countless blood vessels and branches surged out from the blood pool, wrapping around Zhuo Wen's limbs and bones from all directions. Moreover, they completely sealed off his path of retreat. Sword fire ultimacy. Zhuo Wen coldly snorted as mental energy gushed out from his Niwen palace. Subsequently, the ultimate and limitless sword array in his spirit ring transformed into streaks of cold light that shot out, transforming into a sea of fire that blotted the sky, completely blocking the countless vessel-like branches outside. At the same time, Zhuo Wen's footsteps shifted as he flew backwards, his gaze grave as he stared at the blood pool in front of him. When Zhuo Wen retreated to the entrance of the hall, the countless vessel-like branches in the blood pool no longer chased after him, as if there was some kind of restriction. Zhuo Wen put down the person in his hand. Only then did he notice that the person's appearance was somewhat familiar. He asked somewhat uncertainly, "You're Zhu Chang from the Great Zhu Institute?" The person fell to the ground and retched for a while before gradually recovering a trace of clarity. He stared at Zhuo Wen, his entire body trembling as he nodded and said, "Yes, I'm Zhu Chang, I'm Zhu Chang. Just what has happened here?" Zhuo Wen frowned slightly as the ominous feeling in his heart grew even more intense. Something big must have happened in the hall because the people who had died here were basically all cultivators from the outside world. Quite a few of them were elite cultivators from the 7 great prefectures. Zhu Chang crossed his arms when he heard Zhuo Wen's question. His entire body trembled even faster as his teeth chattered. His eyes were filled with fear as he stammered, "The day I return will be the day the Lord of the Extreme Demon arrives. The Lord of the Extreme Demon has returned, bringing with him endless resentment." Oh! Zhuo Wen's brows were tightly knitted together when he heard Zhu Chang's mindless words. He was even more confused. Zhu Chang was a second-level emperor after all, yet he was so frightened. He really did not know what kind of existence could make a second-level emperor like this. However, from Zhu Chang's words, it was clear that the reason the hall had become like this was related to the Lord of the Extreme Demon. Could it be that the Lord of the Extreme Demon, who has disappeared for many years, has returned? However, given the Lord of the Extreme Demon's advanced emperor cultivation, he shouldn't have mobilized so many people, right? Zhuo Wen frowned slightly. He felt very doubtful. Everything that had happened was just too strange. Swoosh. The sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. Then, an extremely terrifying attack descended from the sky above Zhuo Wen's head. Zhuo Wen felt a sense of danger as an ominous feeling rose in his heart. Subsequently, Zhuo Wen stomped his foot and dodged to the side. Boom! A huge light sword landed at the place where Zhuo Wen was just a moment ago. Then, a huge crater appeared where he was standing. However, the light sword did not hit its target, so it turned around and flew toward Zhu Chang. Not good. Chapter 1201. 5 Absolutes. The bloody mist exploded and blood water bloomed like flowers. Soon after, it was absorbed by the blood pool, causing the stench of blood in the hall to become even more disgusting. Zhuo Wen's face turned slightly ugly. He slowly took a few steps back and stared at the figure on the light sword. He was wearing a ghost mask and the number 5 was drawn on the forehead of the mask. The 5th Absolutes of the 10 Absolutes sect. Zhuo Wen narrowed his eyes and said coldly. 5 Absolutes stared at Zhuo Wen indifferently and said coldly, "The 10th and 9th Absolutes are dead. Did you kill them? Look at you. You should already know. Why do you still ask?" Zhuo Wen sneered. "Since you killed them, you should be buried together with the 10th and 9th Absolutes." Having said that, 5 Absolutes held the sword hilt with his right hand and suddenly pulled it out. He stepped on the void and turned into a shadow, instantly shooting out like a bolt of black lightning. Zhuo Wen narrowed his eyes and tapped his forehead with his right hand. The Buddha demon eye appeared and instantly switched to the Buddha eye. His body was covered in golden light and his Buddha palm suddenly blasted out, hitting the light sword. Boom! 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 Continuous explosions rang out. Zhuo Wen frowned and took a few steps back. On the other hand, 5 Absolutes only took 7 to 8 steps back. In this exchange, Zhuo Wen, who had switched to the Buddha body, was actually at a disadvantage. 3rd Heaven Emperor Realm? Zhuo Wen narrowed his eyes and frowned. The fifth absolute of the 10 Extremes sect was actually at the fourth level of the Great Emperor realm. This was terrifying. Didn't that mean that the other absolutes before the fifth absolute were all at the fourth level of the Great Emperor realm? There might even be fifth or sixth level existences. What kind of existence is the 10 Absolute sect? Why are there so many powerful martial artists? Zhuowen frowned and suddenly remembered that Kang Dai had told him that the 10 Absolute sect was extremely mysterious. Even the 7 great prefectures did not dare to casually touch such a force. The 10 Absolute sect was faintly catching up with the Great Devil sect. Dai. The moment Wu Ju stabilized himself, he took another step forward and swung the light sword in his hand. It turned into a light bridge that spanned across the void and charged toward Zhuowen. Buddha's illumination. Zhuowen frowned slightly, and the light wheel behind his head burst into a blazing light. Then, he threw out a punch, which burst out with endless Buddha's light. This punch seemed to be plated with gold, shuttling through the void and landing heavily on the terrifying light sword. Rumble. The golden light and the lightsaber seemed to have stagnated in the void before coming to a stop. Amidst the golden light, Zhuowen frowned slightly. This Diwu Ju's strength was not bad. He was stronger than Sage Jin, whom he had encountered last time. However, he was still inferior to Yun Zhongjuan. Moreover, this lightsaber was only a low-level Emperor artifact. Therefore, Diwu Ju was unable to suppress Zhuowen. Wu Ju, who was holding the light sword, had an ugly expression on his face. Zhuowen's difficulty had exceeded his expectations. Swoosh. Just as the two of them were locked in a stalemate, the sound of something breaking through the air suddenly came from behind Zhuowen. The sharp sound of friction against the air gave Zhuowen an ominous feeling. 9 flames karmic fire. With a low roar, the 9 flames karmic fire burst out from his body. Flames of 9 different colors alternated and spread throughout the entire space. At the same time, they formed a thick fire shield behind Zhuowen. Rumble. The dull sound of the sharp weapon colliding with the fire shield rang out. Then, Zhuowen felt a violent force coming from behind him, which made his chest feel stuffy. Retreat. When the person who launched the sneak attack saw that his attack had missed, he immediately retreated. However, how could Zhuowen let him retreat so easily? With a thought, the 9 flames karmic fire turned into countless fire pythons that shot out from all directions and surrounded the person who launched the sneak attack. Bang! 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 At the same time, Zhuowen exerted his strength with his right fist and blocked Wu Ju's light sword. Then, he retreated and his gaze fell on the person who launched the sneak attack, who was surrounded by the 9 flames karmic fire. The person who launched the sneak attack was also wearing a ghost mask. However, the word 6 was drawn on his forehead. He should be the 6th absolute of the 10 Absolute sect. The 6th absolute's cultivation was much weaker than the 5 absolutes. He was only at the 2nd level Emperor realm. At this moment, he was surrounded by the 9 flames karmic fire and looked extremely miserable. After all, the 9 flames karmic fire was a heavenly fire. One could imagine how powerful it was. Sneak attack me? Then you will have to pay the price. Now, I will add fuel to the fire. Zhuowen snorted coldly. Immediately, the mental strength in his Niwen palace surged out. Then, the ultimate infinite sword formation shot out rays of sword light. They were like the brightest stars in the night sky. However, the cold rays were quickly replaced by terrifying flames. The long swords were covered in terrifying flames and possessed the power to burn the heavens and the earth. In an instant, Wu Ju was completely surrounded by the sword fire ultimacy. The power of the sword fire ultimacy would increase as the power of the flames increased. At this moment, the sword fire ultimacy was combined with the 9 flames karmic fire and its power had increased by several folds. Wu Ju was only at the 2nd level Emperor realm. Under the combined power of the sword fire ultimacy and the 9 flames karmic fire, he did not last long. He let out a miserable shriek and was completely burned into ashes by the flames. Wu Ju, who was forced to retreat, had just stabilized himself when he heard Wu Ju's miserable shriek. Then, His eyes narrowed as he realized that Wu Ju had completely turned into ashes in front of him. Bastard! How dare you kill Wu Ju? Wu Ju roared. His eyes gradually became wild and violent. Then, he kicked out. The light sword in his hand started to grow under the effect of his yuan power. It grew to a size of several 100 feet. Then, he raised the light sword above his head and slammed it down. Suddenly, the huge light sword was like a meteor that cut through the void and came crashing down. Boundless Buddhism. Zhuowen put his palms together. Suddenly, the light wheel behind his head shot out and turned into a huge light wheel that was several 100 feet wide. Golden Sanskrit words appeared on the surface of the light wheel. At the same time, the Sanskrit chants of Buddhism sounded like hypnosis. Under the boundless Buddhist light, Zhuowen looked like an ancient Buddha, solemn and dignified. The light sword that was several 100 feet wide descended. However, when the light sword was about to reach the light wheel, it was purified by the boundless Buddhist light and dissipated. Swoosh! The moment the light swords were purified, Zhuowen leaped into the air above the light wheel. With a wave of his right hand, the light wheel was grasped in his hand. Then, he took a step forward and appeared in front of the 5 absolutes as if he had teleported. He waved the light wheel, emitting a terrifying Buddhist light that enveloped the 5 absolutes. Damn it! Wu Ju's face was as pale as snow. His eyes were filled with fear. However, he was still unwilling to give up. He clenched his right hand and formed a huge light sword again. Boom! Wu Ju kicked out and slashed out with the light sword in his hand. Suddenly, the blazing light split into thousands of light rays and lit up the entire stone hall. The thousands of light rays turned into thousands of light swords and shot out. They were like countless light tadpoles. With Wu Ju as the center, the light swords floated around. Wu Ju's aura was extremely terrifying. Break! Countless light swords flickered. Then, like laser guns, they blasted the light wheel and forced it to retreat. At the same time, Wu Ju quickly retreated dozens of meters away. He stared at Zhuowen with fear in his eyes. Wu Ju's condition was not good. His face was extremely pale. It was obvious that the previous attack had cost him a lot. Zhuowen waved his right hand and took the light wheel into his hand. He frowned and stared at Wu Ju in front of him. He did not expect Wu Ju to have such a move that could forcefully block the Buddha Dao light wheel. The Buddha Dao light wheel was very powerful. It was the source of the Buddha body's immortality. It would be difficult for ordinary forces to even push it back, let alone destroy it. Were all the warriors in this hall killed by the 10 Extremes sect? Zhuowen was not in a hurry to continue attacking. After Wu Ju used that attack, he was already an arrow at the end of its flight. Therefore, Zhuowen was not worried that Wu Ju could escape. Instead, he confronted him from afar and asked about the situation here. Hee. What do you think? Wu Ju sneered. Zhuowen frowned and said coldly, I am the one asking you now. However, you don't look like you will answer me. In that case, I can only kill you. With that, Zhuowen put his palms together and flew out again. Buddha light shone brightly and the light wheel in his hand resounded with the solemn Sanskrit chant again. Wu Ju's face changed drastically. Just as Zhuowen had guessed, he was indeed an arrow at the end of its flight. He was not a match for Zhuowen even when he was at his peak, let alone now. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. However, just as Zhuowen was about to reach Wu Ju, 3 figures suddenly rushed out from the surrounding rock walls. Then, 3 extremely terrifying attacks came crashing down on Zhuowen like a towering mountain. Danger! A strong sense of danger rose in Zhuowen's mind. His figure, which was originally rushing toward Wu Ju, forcibly turned his head. Then, he waved the light wheel in his right hand. Suddenly, Buddhist light shone. In front of the light wheel, countless golden lights were attached to it, forming an extremely thick light shield. Bang! 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 When the 3 attacks landed, 3 dull sounds were heard. Then, Zhuowen felt his hands go numb. He was shocked to find that cracks appeared on the surface of the golden shield in front of him. The cracks spread at a terrifying speed and covered the entire surface of the golden shield in an instant. Then, with a bang, it shattered into countless golden fragments. Puff! Zhuo Wen spat out a mouthful of blood as he was blown away. He slammed into the wall of the stone hall, leaving behind a human-shaped hole. Second Jew, third Jew, and fourth Jew? After coughing out a mouthful of blood, Zhuo Wen struggled to get up from the human-shaped hole. His gaze shifted and fell on the three figures that suddenly appeared. He muttered softly. Chapter 1202. The Truth 1 4th Level Emperor Realm and 2 5th Level Emperor Realm Experts. Zhuo Wen slowly stepped back and looked at the second, third, and fourth absolutes. The fourth absolutes was a 4th level Great Emperor, while the second and third absolutes were 5th level Great Emperors. Especially the second absolutes. His aura was much stronger than the third absolutes. He wasn't far from the 6th level Great Emperor realm. Kid. Run. Given your current strength, you can barely fight against a 4th level Emperor realm expert. A 5th level Emperor realm expert is not someone you can deal with. Even if you have reached 5th level Emperor realm, it is still unlikely that you will be a match for a 5th level Emperor realm expert. Xiao Hei's voice suddenly resounded in Zhuo Wen's mind. Without any hesitation, Zhuo Wen took a step forward. At the same time, 3 pairs of lightning wings appeared on his back. He transformed into a bolt of lightning and fled towards the tunnel outside the hall. Second Master, Third Master, and Fourth Master sneered at the same time. None of them chased after Zhuo Wen. Instead, they watched coldly as Zhuo Wen fled. Boom! Just as Zhuo Wen was about to reach the entrance of the hall, a violent energy surged towards him. Zhuo Wen was caught off guard and he was hit by the violent energy. He spat out a mouthful of blood and violently smashed into the ground in the middle of the hall. Zhuo Wen struggled to get up. His gaze was dark and cold as he stared at the entrance of the large hall. All he could see was a graceful figure slowly walking over from behind the entrance. Her clear and melodious footsteps slowly reverberated within the large hall. They were just like the sound of flowing water, clear and pleasant to the ears. When the graceful figure finally arrived at the entrance of the large hall, Zhuo Wen was finally able to see the true face of the figure. He saw the figure smiling sweetly at him. Her smile was as stunning and colorful as the blooming of 100 flowers. Zhuo Wen, we meet again. Zhuo Wen's eyes narrowed as he stared at the figure. He said in a deep voice, so it is you. Kang Dai. The graceful figure that walked out of the entrance of the hall was Kang Suo, who had just finished repairing the teleportation array in the stone hall. At this moment, the demonic aura around Kang Dai's body became even more intense. Her hair, eyes, lips, and nails were all a strange pitch-black color. In particular, strands of black demonic aura would occasionally linger around this woman's body, making her look extremely intimidating and terrifying. What was even stranger was that the aura on her body gave him an unfathomable feeling. This caused Zhuo Wen to be extremely wary. After all, he had been blasted away by this woman earlier. Although this woman looked harmless, the power that truly erupted from her body caused Zhuo Wen to be extremely wary. Who are you? Zhuo Wen's eyes narrowed as he finally asked the question in his heart. Although he had felt that there was something wrong with Kang Dai from the start, the aura on her body was extremely weak. Hence, Zhuo Wen did not pay much attention to it. However, he now realized that he was way too wrong. This Kang Dai was really not simple. Regardless of whether it was repairing the teleportation array in the stone hall or the powerful attack that had blasted him out of the stone hall, Zhuo Wen realized that this Kang Dai was definitely an extraordinary person. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. At this moment, second absolute, third absolute, fourth absolute, and fifth absolute were like 4 bolts of lightning as they swept behind Kang Dai. The 4 of them lowered their heads and their eyes were filled with reverence. It was as if they were following Kang Dai's lead. Guess who I am? A carefree smile appeared on Kang Dai's exquisite face. The founder of the 10 Extremes sect, the first absolute. Looking at the performance of second absolute, third absolute, fourth absolute, and fifth absolute, Zhuo Wen's eyes narrowed. He quickly thought of the founder of the 10 Extremes sect. It was said that the first absolute's strength was extremely terrifying. The 7 mansion masters who ruled the panicked great world were extremely fearful of the first absolute and the 10 Extremes sect. Even though the 10 Extremes sect was wreaking havoc in the 7 Mansion regions, the 7 Mansion Masters still did not touch the 10 Extremes sect. This showed how mysterious the 10 Extremes sect was. However, what Zhuoan did not expect was that Kang Dai, the daughter of Mansion Master Kang Jie of the Great Kang Mansion, was actually the founder of the 10 Extremes sect. It is said that Kang Jie, the daughter of Mansion Master Kang Jie, is only 17 or 18 years old. However, the 10 Extremes sect has existed for almost 100 years. The founder of the 10 Extremes sect should be over 100 years old, right? Zhuoan said with a frown. Haha. Zhuoan, you are too naive. Do you believe that I am Kang Dai of the Great Kang Mansion? Originally, I thought that you, an outsider from the panicked world, would be a little smarter, but now it seems that I have overestimated you. Kang Dai suddenly laughed. His laughter was full of sarcasm. What do you mean? Zhuoan asked with a slight frown. His heart was extremely restless. This Kang Dish actually knew that he, Zhuoan, did not belong to this panicked big world. How did this Kang Dish find out? Kang Dai did not answer. Instead, he looked at the 4 people behind him and said indifferently, 2nd invincible, 3rd invincible, 4th invincible, and 5th invincible. The 4 of you take off your masks and let Zhuoan take a good look. Yes. 2nd Severance, 3rd Severance, and the other 2 nodded in agreement. Then, they removed the ghost masks from their faces. When their faces appeared before Zhuoan's eyes, Zhuoan was stunned. It was as though he had been struck by lightning. The reason for that was because the 4 of them were no strangers to Zhuoan. In fact, they could even be said to be rather familiar with him. The Great Ju Mansion Master Ju Bin, the Great Qin Mansion Master Qin Xin, the Great Kang Mansion Master Tsungjie, and the Great Chu Mansion Master Chu Yu? Zhuoan muttered in a low voice. His eyes were filled with shock. He had never thought that the 10 Absolute sect would actually have 4 of the 7 Mansion Masters. Especially the 2nd Severance, 3rd Severance, and 4th Severance. They were actually the top 3 Mansion Masters of the 7 Mansion Masters. Don't make wild guesses. The 7 Mansion Masters are all members of the 10 Absolute sect. As for me, I am the 1st Severance. The so-called Tsungjie's daughter, Kang Dish, is just my disguise. Even the hero assembly was planned by our 10 Absolute sect. It can even be said that the core higher-ups of the 7 Mansion Masters are basically under the control of our 10 Absolute sect. The entire panicked big world is already under the control of our 10 Absolute sect, Kang Dish said with a faint smile. After a long time, Zhuoan slowly calmed down the shock in his heart. Shortly after, he pointed at the blood pool in the middle of the hall with his right hand and said, "Then, the so-called map of the Great Demon Sect ruins was deliberately released by your 10 Absolute sect. The hero assembly was to attract many warriors from the panicked big world to the Great Demon Sect ruins. The purpose was to kill these warriors who broke into the Great Demon Sect ruins. Then, what is the purpose of killing so many people? Hee. Of course, it's to sacrifice. I am the remnant soul of the Great Demon Lord. I want to recreate the glory of the past. It is also to take revenge for the people who destroyed my Great Demon Sect." Speaking of this, Kang Dish's eyes revealed a murderous glint as if he thought of something bad. Hearing this, Zhuoan frowned slightly. It seemed that the disappearance of the Great Demon Lord was inconsistent with the transmission. He didn't know what happened back then. Moreover, Kang Dish admitted that he was the remnant soul of the Great Demon Lord. He didn't know if it was true or not. At this moment, Zhuoan suddenly found that he had walked into a puzzle. Taking a deep breath, Zhuoan continued to ask, "Also, how did you know that I am an outsider?" Haha. The aura on your body is too different from the people of the panicked great world. Although ordinary warriors can't sense that you are different, I can sense that you are not from this world. The moment you killed the 10th extremity, I had already planned this. Kang Dish suddenly laughed. Hearing this, Zhuoan felt a chill in his heart. He didn't expect that he would fall into Kang Dish's trap from the very beginning. Kang Dish was just too terrifying. Whether it was his strength or his schemes, he made Zhuoan feel powerless. He was like a mouse that smelled the fragrance of cheese. The moment he was attracted by the cheese, he jumped in without hesitation and put himself in such a difficult situation. I won't say any more nonsense. With your strength, I think you should know what to do, right? Kang Dish slowly walked towards Zhuowen as his indifferent voice sounded. Zhuowen frowned more and more, but he slowly retreated. The aura on Kang Dish's body was extremely sharp and terrifying. From the collision just now, Zhuowen had no confidence in facing such an opponent. What do you want me to do? Zhuowen asked cautiously. Kang Dish sneered and said, what else can you do? Naturally, you will become the nourishment of the blood pool. With your strength and talent, if you enter the blood pool, the power you will sacrifice will be much stronger than that of ordinary warriors. You want to sacrifice me? Zhuowen asked with a gloomy look. Haha. The blood of an outsider usually has a different kind of power. Perhaps it can restore most of my strength in one fell swoop, Kang Dish said indifferently. Boom. 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 As he walked, the violent aura on Kang Dish's body exploded. A terrifying hurricane swept out from his body. The pressure revealed was like a mountain, crushing on Zhuowen's body. This caused Zhuowen's face to change greatly. His knees bent slightly as if he would kneel down at any time. 10,000 feet Buddha body, Zhuowen roared in anger. Buddhist light burst out from his body and shot up into the sky. He was tens of thousands of feet tall, as if he could penetrate the heavens and the earth. Zhuowen's body grew even taller, becoming tens of thousands of feet tall. The entire hall was pierced through by Zhuowen's huge body. The mighty Buddhist light shot in all directions, turning the entire hall into a golden color. Boom. Boom. Countless rocks fell from the top of the hall and smashed onto the ground. Second absolute, third absolute, fourth absolute, and fifth absolute staggered as they looked at Zhuowen, who had transformed into a 10,000 feet Buddha body. Their faces were filled with astonishment. You have some skills. However, so what if your body has become 10,000 feet tall? Just crush me. Kang Jie snorted. With a tap of her foot, her graceful figure dashed out like a dancing butterfly. Billowing black demon chi soared into the sky and condensed into a huge demon shadow in the void. The demon shadow was covered in black armor with ferocious black horns protruding from the surface of the armor. Boom. The demon shadow roared and threw out a punch. The mountain-like demon hand blasted out and Zhuowen, with his 10,000 feet Buddha body, also threw out a punch. Boom. 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 You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,